The royal family just ordered the McGovern clan on a deadly monster wipeout mission, backed up by the Valsar bloodline. Leading the charge is Commander Arden. However, this so-called warrior is a sleeper agent tasked with slaughtering the McGovern heirs. During combat, Arden plays the perfect soldier. He shreds through surrounding beasts, tricking the McGoverns into dropping their guard completely. A massive goblin boss spawns. Arden thrusts his spear, intentionally grazing a harmless spot to fake a miss. This forces the beast to retreat perfectly, splitting the Valsar troops from the McGovern squad. Everything goes exactly as planned. Arden links up with the goblin boss and a dark mage to finish the job. Suddenly, a McGovern heir steps from the shadows. He casually asks if he crashed their little villain meetup. Arden freezes, mind blown that this brat uncovered their exact coordinates. The kid exposes everything. He name-drops Arden's secret alias Wooden Cloud and completely calls out the goblin boss. He just leaked their entire operation. Before anyone reacts, the boy grabs his heavy blade, severing the dark sorcerer's arms at absolute light speed. Arden stares in pure shock. He panics, wondering what kind of monster this kid actually is. The traitor lunges to intercept, but the boy vanishes instantly, slicing the massive goblin boss clean down the middle. Arden launches a sneak attack, but the kid reads him perfectly, dodging the lethal strike like it was absolute child's play. In a literal flash, his blade claims Arden's arm. The commander stands completely frozen, his brain failing to process the brutal counter. Reality finally hits, and Arden collapses to his knees, bleeding out. See, this kid hails from a bloodline of pure barbarians. They are famously born without mana. Yet somehow this guy unlocked magical powers, transforming into an absolute one-man army. Meet Khalil. Let us totally rewind the clock to see his epic glow-up. Before becoming this overpowered kid, he was a literal savior, a legend who saved humanity from a monstrous apocalypse. His reward for playing hero: a brutal backstab from his closest friend. Framed for assassinating the emperor, he was hunted by his own comrades. He took his final breath, drowning in pure regret. Boom, our main character wakes up years in the past, way before that tragic war even started. But there is a massive catch. He lost his title as the legendary Sword Saint. Now he is a savage barbarian kid named Khalil, just adopted by Quell McGovern. Talk about awkward. Quell is the exact same commander who slaughtered Khalil's original family in his previous life. However, Khalil desperately needs powerful allies to survive the upcoming apocalypse. He soon comes face to face with his new adoptive siblings. Society treats barbarians like absolute trash because they lack mana circuits. Using any form of magic is literally impossible for them. So when he casually announces at dinner that he plans to master magic and crush everyone, his new family thinks he is totally delusional. The eldest brother Marta steps up to humble this arrogant little rookie, right inside the arena. Marta is a literal prodigy, flexing his mana blade and veteran skills. But our main character just survived, the deadliest training tower ever built. To him, Marta is just a toddler waving a twig. Khalil reads his brother's furious attacks instantly, slips past a heavy slash, and violently connects a right hook straight to the prodigy's jaw. The entire training ground drops into absolute silence. Instead of trash-talking, Khalil simply extends a hand, instantly locking in his older brother's total respect. He easily took the massive win. But knocking out a teen will not prevent doomsday. Khalil desperately needs a legendary artifact locked down below, blown away by his sheer guts. The Count grants Khalil VIP access to the ancient Einherjar archives. What nobody realizes is that the original founder was history's absolute first dragon slayer. He cleverly rigged an insanely impossible puzzle trap. The heavily guarded hidden vault door reveals itself solely to those with zero trace of mana. This makes our magicless barbarian the only human alive actually capable of claiming it. Khalil breaches the hidden sanctuary and secures the ultimate prize, a true dragon heart. Seconds after swallowing the core, massive regret hits him. His muscles literally rip apart from within. The sheer agony blasts his consciousness straight into a forgotten memory dimension. He watches the ancient dragon Lyceria brutally clashing with the mage who stole her heart. Khalil literally feels her agonizing death echoing through his veins, his flesh melting as it bonds with the legendary core. 7 days later, his eyes snap open in bed. Something feels dangerously different. Staring at his palm, he casually ignites a blazing blue flame. He finally broke his limits and unlocked mana manipulation. Before he can even hype himself up, a brutal cramp drops him hard. He forcefully shattered 2 mana cores open, but 10 insane seals still remain locked tightly. Khalil spends the next few days aggressively grinding his magic and leveling up. Suddenly, the royal elites command the McGovern clan to launch a massive monster subjugation raid, sending backup forces from the Valsar bloodline as a twisted favor. The Valsars are literally their most toxic political enemies. Khalil instantly recognizes this exact setup. In his previous timeline, this supposedly routine raid was a flawless death trap that brutally claimed the life of his brother Marta. They link up with the Valsar squad commanded by the lethal warrior Arden. Khalil knows the dark truth. Arden is a hidden assassin ordered to guarantee the McGovern heirs die in that forest. Khalil figured the traitor lurked beyond the Empire's borders. Spotting his intense glare, Martha asked what was brewing inside his head. Brushing it off, he claimed it was nothing. His iron mask stayed locked on, keeping his true bloodline completely buried in the shadows. He hailed from the fierce barbarian tribes. To Khalil, that heavy disguise wasn't a burden at all. Honestly, it felt like absolute freedom. It perfectly shielded his dangerous secret. Once Arden rallied his heavily armed troops, the commanding knight barked the order to march out. The eldest heir dropped a crucial warning for our hero. He desperately needed him to keep dead aim on that knight commander. An unnecessary plea, honestly. Our main character already had that sketchy leader locked dead in his absolute sights. Riding out the cavalry pushed hard toward the jagged borderline. Khalil's sharp eyes instantly mapped out the deadly terrain ahead. The canyon walls began closing in. Drawing from his previous life's bloody memories, the fatal strike went down in a choke point exactly like this. The slaughter was imminent. Khalil tightened his grip, adrenaline pumping. Suddenly, a panicked scout screamed about a massive monster sighting. Over 100 frenzied goblins swarmed their position. Arden roared at his vanguard to brace for impact. Meanwhile, Khalil's deadly gaze never left the commander. He wouldn't let a single detail slip, vowing to rewrite destiny today. Just inches away, the green tide crashed into their front lines. Smashing through his own men's shield wall, Arden launched himself straight into the beastly horde, hungry for absolute carnage. Wielding his deadly spear, he transformed into a roaring human meat grinder, shredding every single monster in his path to absolute pieces. His combat prowess was undeniably terrifying. Hyping up his trembling vanguard, he roared at them to crush their fear and push back. He commanded them to lock down the perimeter and strike hard. The iron wall shifted smoothly, thrusting a lethal forest of steel outward. Piercing any foolish beast that charged the chaotic horde, started dropping like flies. Khalil drew his glowing blade, diving straight into the bloodbath. Slicing through skulls from horseback, he dominated the skirmish. But something clicked inside his head. This enemy wave felt way too small. A pathetic force like this could never trigger the catastrophic bloodbath that brutally claimed his brother's life in the past timeline. A legendary warrior wouldn't fall to a mere handful of grunts. Plus, these hardened troops held their defensive lines like absolute veterans. The deadly tension quickly evaporated into thin air. Their desperate ambush was completely snuffed out. But then a chilling realization hit him hard. A twisted anomaly was rewriting history. A colossal wave of pure destruction suddenly erupted, crashing violently into the battalion's blind rear flank. A nightmare forged of fangs and muscle stepped out of the shadows. In its massive grip rested a terrifying weapon the size of a redwood. Its earth-shattering roar instantly paralyzed even the most battle-hardened veterans with pure terror. Standard shields were basically paper against that towering behemoth. Cold sweat dripped down Khalil's neck. That was the legendary goblin chief itself. Even solo, its raw power was absolutely god-tier. But commanding an ocean of thousands of monstrous servants, that made it an apocalyptic-level threat. Tyrone, sensing the Grim Reaper, breathing down their necks, screamed at the vanguard to immediately retreat. Our main character simply locked onto Arden's next move. Despite the looming slaughter, the suspicious commander barked chillingly, calm, calculated orders to his frantic troops. Khalil scoffed at the fake hero act. He knew that rat was a filthy spy. Showing up at this exact bloodbath was definitely orchestrated. Our guy stayed laser-focused, waiting to see just how long this traitor could keep up his pathetic little masquerade. Dismounting to slaughter a few more stragglers, Arden commanded his battered squad to carve out a bloody escape route. He warned against reckless suicide charges, telling the brave to shadow his every step. Instantly, his spear tip ignited with a blinding, lethal aura. Channeling a devastating magical enchantment, Arden paralyzed the surrounding monsters with pure pressure. The elite knight prepared to unleash an absolute nuke of an attack. Locking dead onto the monstrous chief, he launched his glowing spear like a shooting star. Yet the epic strike ended up doing absolutely zero damage. The Titan effortlessly swatted it away. Still, the commander reacted with lightning speed, snatching his ricocheting weapon right out of thin air. Defying gravity mid-air, he perfectly set himself up for a massive killing blow against the towering beast. Right before the impact, his wrist flicked with shady precision. Khalil's hawk-like vision caught that tiny, treacherous adjustment in high definition. The strike slammed into the monster. But having witnessed that micro-movement, our regressor knew for a fact this knight was weaving a sinister web. He completely threw the shot on purpose. Now the infuriated, slightly bleeding giant was infinitely more lethal. Roaring, the beast lunged at its flashy attacker. The terrified soldiers screamed for their commander, but Arden casually deflected the crushing blow. Surviving that close call, the cunning alpha monster decided a tactical retreat was its best bet for survival. Sensing a fake opening, Arden commanded his entire squad to hunt down the retreating horde, demanding absolute extermination without mercy. The pieces finally clicked in our hero's mind. This was exactly why everyone remained blindly oblivious to the tragedy in his previous timeline. Valsor's vanguard would foolishly chase those decoys, leaving the main McGovern garrison completely exposed to a devastating surprise slaughter. A perfectly orchestrated cinematic betrayal. But Khalil grinned, knowing their flawless scheme had one fatal flaw. His regressor knowledge was about to shatter it all. Desperate, Tyrone begged our main character to dispatch backup to the reckless commander hunting down those beasts. Prioritizing this territory over his stepbrother's commands, Khalil flat out refused to hunt down those low-level beasts. His eyes locked onto a bigger prize. Arden was the real prey he intended to hunt down. Hooves thundered as the armored cavalry tracked the horde, until Arden finally signaled a hard stop. Glancing over his shoulder, he confirmed their massive lead. He commanded his squad to slaughter the trash mobs. He was stepping up to solo the boss. Panic instantly rippled through his loyal frontline troops. A goblin chief never roams alone, always shadowed by a dark mage. That duo spells absolute disaster. They had to be eliminated immediately. Arden sneered, deeply insulted, questioning if they actually doubted his solo clearing skills. The knight immediately swallowed his pride and apologized. Marching forward, Arden bluntly stated his squad was just dead weight. Riding solo now, he smirked, knowing the McGovern troops had enough battlefield chaos to keep them completely occupied. Pushing deeper into the zone, he abruptly halted. His sharp gaze scanned the bleak terrain, confirming the meetup coordinates. The brutalized goblin chief bled nearby. Arden called out into the shadows, demanding the hidden figure finally step out. A dark mage materialized from the gloom, smirking that he had been waiting. He casually praised the McGovern vanguard's ferocity. Arden demanded the mage execute the target. Gesturing toward the crippled beast, the caster agreed to finish the exhausting job. Suddenly, an icy voice shattered the silence, mocking their little secret rendezvous. Our main character stepped directly into the spotlight. He sighed, venting about his completely wasted efforts. He craved solid intel, but this so-called route was painfully annoying. He directly name-dropped the wooden cloud. Arden froze, visibly stunned, demanding to know how a brat secured top-tier classified intel. Leveling his lethal spear at Khalil, he interrogated if the boy belonged to their underground syndicate. But our hero instantly read the room. Arden was clueless. The knight was completely locked out of the core mission briefs. Khalil played along, claiming he arrived as backup to settle his own bloody score with the McGovern bloodline. Questioning Wooden Cloud's involvement, Arden's paranoia spiked. This random kid casually dropping his elite codename felt highly suspicious. Was he an undercover operative? Khalil kept pushing, noting that deploying a goblin chief was no joke. The route definitely burned massive funds for this raid. Therefore, the mages had to be primed for the impending ambush. He admitted his aggressive probing violated their strict syndicate code of absolute silence and shadow protocol. But he promised this chaos was an anomaly. Begging for leeway, Khalil absolutely flexed his level 99 charisma stat. Talk no jutsu had nothing on this flawless delivery. He smoothly pivoted, declaring he had personal orders to execute. Branches merely obey the commands given. That way, the trunk feeds vital data straight back to the root. Hook, line, and sinker. Arden completely bought the act, happily confirming his monster army was locked and loaded for the ambush. One simple signal was all it took. The root's hand-picked dark mage would guarantee an effortlessly flawless massacre. That specific caster held the reins, mentally dominating the beasts and waiting to trigger the green light. Khalil tilted his head, verifying if that mage orchestrated the entire swarm. Confirming it brought a chilling wave of relief. White-knuckling his blade, the boy closed the distance instantly, reigniting Arden's worst survival instincts. In a blinding flash, both of the mage's hands were brutally severed. Khalil coldly muttered he was utterly sick of annoying obstacles. Witnessing the gory spectacle, Arden erupted into blinding fury, roaring out to demand an immediate explanation. Our ruthless main character just smirked. He had perfectly stalled for time, isolating them for a systematic one-on-one slaughter. Completely baffled by this lethal phantom's origins, genuine terror finally bled into the knight's eyes. Khalil instantly marked him as the ultimate stepping stone to level up. Until today, he was forced to hide his magical output. Across from him, pure mana wildly surged into Arden's heavy broadsword. Arden desperately analyzed the boy's elemental affinity, flying totally blind in this terrifying first encounter. Adding to the nightmare, he had absolutely zero clues about this masked assassin's true background or terrifying origins, but solving that mystery was impossible now. Khalil had already launched himself like a heat-seeking missile. Blurring past the knight's defenses with a grazing strike, Arden instantly felt the chilling reality this kid was an absolute anomaly. Floating like a deadly shadow, our protagonist showcased god-tier footwork. The armored veteran immediately recognized that explosive speed spelled his doom. Completely ignoring his armored adversary, Khalil smoothly pivoted his deadly trajectory straight toward the bleeding goblin chief. The monster sensed its imminent doom, but its massive frame was far too sluggish. In a blinding flash, its torso was perfectly bisected. The slash eclipsed the beast's reaction time. Khalil casually glanced back, admiring his own blood-soaked handiwork. Arden watched in soul-crushing terror as a boss-level threat vanished in one strike. The sheer trauma made the knight realize the devastating truth. The only real monster in this forest was the small, masked boy, gripping a mana-drenched spear. Arden lunged at our main character, closing the distance so fast. He actually thought he caught the kid slipping, but his spear merely sliced through empty space. Khalil didn't just evade the fatal strike, he instantly closed in. In that terrifying split second, Arden knew he messed up big time. That devastating thrust struck absolutely nothing but the wind. Fueled by pure fury, our reincarnated hero surged forward. Flashing through the darkness like a literal thunderbolt, he ruthlessly claimed Arden's arm. It took Arden a hot minute to realize his dominant hand was gone. Agony completely paralyzed his body, forcing him to his knees. Meanwhile, Khalil analyzed his own movements, knowing his combat skills still needed serious work. He desperately needed true mana mastery. With his enemy totally crushed, our guy calmly approached, demanding some quick answers. He casually suggested the Broken Knight start talking, unless he wanted to experience even more unimaginable suffering. He demanded intel about their secret route. Sweating bullets and realizing this kid was ruthless, Arden scoffed, asking if Khalil would actually snitch in his shoes. Tracing his blade's cold steel, Khalil coldly agreed that he absolutely would keep his mouth shut too. Without missing a beat, he launched another brutal strike, violently shifting his interrogation tactics. He threw out a second question demanding to uncover their ultimate endgame after this assassination mission. Trembling with absolute terror, Arden stubbornly refused to drop any lore. Khalil just smirked, whispering that he didn't even need the truth anymore. He just needed to turn this pathetic traitor into a bloody warning. In one clean flash, his blade completely severed Arden's head from his shoulders, proving he wasn't here to play games. His piercing gaze locked onto the dark mage, hoping this guy possessed a higher pain tolerance. Witnessing that flawless execution, the magic user absolutely soiled himself in pure panic, begging for mercy. He screamed at his monsters to attack the savage kid. But unfortunately for this pathetic villain, these beasts possess survival instincts, and they instantly scattered into the shadows. The desperate mage barked useless threats, but Khalil literally teleported behind his back, whispering dangerously that he would only ask once. Moments later, our guy mounted his steed and rode back to camp, dragging the captive mage along. And incredibly stressed, Tyrone finally spotted Khalil approaching. Spotting his younger brother hauling a severed head and a hostage, Tyrone frantically demanded answers about the goblin boss. Khalil calmly revealed it was a trap, lying straight to his face that Knight Arden got brutally shredded by wild monsters. Recognizing the dead traitor's face, Tyrone froze in utter shock. That insane story barely made any logical sense. Khalil instantly tossed the shivering mage onto the dirt, doubling down on his massive ambush lie. He claimed the true target was actually the noble McGovern heir. Tyrone's jaw practically hit the floor. Seizing the momentum, our hero exposed this pathetic mage as the secret beast tamer. After completely breaking the guy, Khalil linked him straight to the Lorraine Duchy. With their evil boss totally eliminated, the monster horde lost all direction. The squad faced a critical choice. Ignoring those savage beasts would guarantee a total massacre in nearby towns. His siblings nodded at that flawless logic. Khalil locked his piercing eyes onto the surviving Valsar officer, their current second in command. With Arden permanently resting in peace, this veteran suddenly received a major battlefield promotion. The old warrior gasped. Khalil offered him a free pass home without dishonor, since losing their leader so early totally shattered their morale. But retreating meant facing the Baron's absolute wrath. Gritting his teeth, the veteran pledged his squad's full support. Smirking at that loyalty, Khalil hopped onto his saddle, praising the veteran's smart choice. He instantly ordered Tyrone to lead the vanguard, needing maximum speed, to obliterate the remaining monsters and minimize civilian casualties. But Tyrone humbly rejected the captain role, officially acknowledging Khalil's absolute dominance on this battlefield. Securing his brother's total respect hyped our hero up, so he roared for the troops to charge behind him. He secretly knew the Oracle would descend in exactly 3 years. Climbing the military ranks at Godspeed was absolutely mandatory. Otherwise, his master plan would totally crumble. Invading the Imperial capital was his ultimate goal, because destiny itself was already mutating. With the monster army in absolute chaos, this presented the perfect window for a flawless massacre. Spearheading the assault, Khalil commanded his squad to push forward. Tyrone just watched his brother's back, completely mind-blown, unable to process this insane reality. For a kid without an ounce of mana, this rookie fought like a literal demon. Watching closely, Marth realized their massive miscalculation. This so-called rookie was an absolute monster. He shuddered, imagining this kid's future adult form. Soon, the word monster would barely scratch the surface of his terrifying power. Back at the main estate, Khalil was already partying up a storm alongside the victorious soldiers. Baldy hyped up young Master Khalil's MVP performance that day, specifically how he snatched up an enemy spy. Baldy stressed that without the boy's clutch intervention, the heir and his brothers would have faced certain doom. The Emperor already caught wind of the news, summoning the captive spy straight to the royal palace. The big question now, will he drag the young master into the Empire's capital? The Count knows His Majesty isn't the real threat there, but those bloodthirsty princes warring over the throne definitely are. They will heavily scrutinize Khalil, desperate to weaponize him. This kid is either a golden ticket or a lethal threat. If the king demands his presence, the Count cannot protect him. Khalil perfectly understands that stepping into that palace right now spells absolute chaos, especially with his outsider status. Regardless, the tides of fate favor him. Stepping toward the barracks, the soldiers shower him with massive respect. But our genius kid already brewed up a master plan. Approaching the chained spy, he locked eyes and commanded the broken man to stand up and listen, like his life depended on it. He demanded the prisoner spill every single dark secret he harbored. Comply and his suffering ends smoothly. Mere minutes later, the boy extracted every drop of classified intel from that broken captive. The trembling sorcerer pleaded for mercy. Khalil coldly stated the palace was his inevitable destination, where unimaginable torture awaited him anyway. Losing chunks of his arms is pure child's play compared to his upcoming royal torment. Escaping this brutal punishment is literally impossible, a nightmare stretching for agonizing months before death finally claims him. Flashing a lethal poison, Khalil offered his twisted version of mercy. He handed the doomed sorcerer a swift ticket out of this world. Meanwhile, stepping back into the village, cheering crowds mobbed the Count's children, worshipping these young warriors like returning legends. Amidst the hype, Tyrone firmly told our hero to hold his head high since he is officially a duke's son now. Plus, his absolute carry job was the key to their survival. Marth insisted he should lead their glorious march, but our protagonist brushed off the clout. He simply noticed how his older brothers suddenly acted extremely friendly after the bloodshed. Having successfully saved the eldest son from death's door, Khalil pondered how this rewrite shifts future timelines. Tyrone warned Marth to prepare himself as the king might summon their entire squad. He also told him to wipe that pathetic look off his face. A royal palace trip is highly likely, yet the ultimate MVP of this bloodbath was Khalil, an outsider carrying their entire squad. Marth sharply realized that if his overpowered brother stays behind, he should also remain grounded, having literally contributed zero to the victory. He stood there, marveling at our protagonist's ice-cold confidence under pressure. Using that overwhelming aura as pure fuel, Marth resolved to shatter his own pathetic limits and level up. Upon hitting the estate, Khalil immediately pushed into the Count's private office. The patriarch welcomed him, praising his flawless execution. Playing it humble, Khalil claimed pure luck. But to his father, luck is an absolute superpower, especially after bagging a shadow spy and cheating his brother's deaths. His epic carry job spread like wildfire, reaching the highest royal palace walls. Soon, dangerous eyes will seek him out. The Count internally panicked, desperate to hide the boy's mysterious origins, so he planned to deploy Tyrone and Marth instead. Khalil coolly brushed it off as fine, witnessing the kid's mature mindset. A wave of relief hit the Count, promising to grant literally any reward the boy desired. Just name it. That blank check sparked a genius idea in our protagonist's mind, immediately requesting official permission to travel abroad. The shocked Count double-checked if he truly wanted to leave their safe borders, which was his exact master plan. Panicking, McGovern feared his son hated their home, but the boy quickly killed that doubt. He simply craved to unlock the mysteries of this massive world. In reality, he desperately needs to manipulate this continent's upcoming catastrophic events, requiring absolute freedom. Digesting his son's solid logic, the Count finally yielded, tossing him a heavy emblem. This exclusive artifact is strictly granted to agents operating under the Lord's banner. It acts as an ultimate VIP pass through every Imperial checkpoint, perfectly masking his true identity in the shadows. The Count deeply apologized for stripping him of his rightful heroic glory. Suddenly, a frantic knock shattered their quiet moment. A breathless messenger delivered a massive reality check. A catastrophic situation just exploded regarding their high-value captive. Baldy aggressively reported that the Dark Sorcerer had completely self-destructed. The Count froze, absolutely stunned by this grim update. Our boy immediately faked an Oscar-worthy look of total shock. Beside the corpse guards discovered a lethal plant. Baldy swore he had aggressively strip-searched the sorcerer multiple times, bowing his head in deep shame for the massive blunder. Trusting his loyal knight's flawless track record, the Count ordered him to drop the guilt. However, this is a catastrophic roadblock, because those elite royal hounds are dropping in at any second, turning this entire mess into an absolute political nightmare. The bald subordinate praised the young lord's epic first victory, but the Count had already crushed this massive headache. Still, the Count knew the bitter truth. They were doomed to face brutal backlash for losing their crucial captive regardless. The real tragedy here, his bloodline, his own son, would be robbed of the absolute glory he rightfully earned. Yet this dodged a massive political bullet. He knew the first prince was lurking by the window, ready to weaponize the chaos. Khalil sensed Prince Leon's venomous intent too. That absolute snake was totally plotting to pin this entire disaster onto Count McGovern, completely disregarding the fact that the Count stands as one of the continent's 5 legendary swordmasters and the Empire's ultimate symbol. Flashing back, Khalil remembered his father's upcoming brutal war campaign would drag on for nearly 1 entire year. That deployment would actually shield him from the prince's toxic strikes. Meanwhile, our boy must seize this golden window to ruthlessly hunt down shadow spies, stockpiling ironclad evidence to forge a devastating counterattack. Clearly, he needed to ditch this location fast. But before vanishing, he made a calculated pit stop at the ancient library. He craved discovering another mythical relic, yet walked away utterly empty-handed. Perhaps that legendary dragon heart was the sole prize. Regardless, our protagonist felt immense gratitude toward the ancient mage. That encounter granted him total rebirth, wielding world-shattering power to rewrite destiny. Suddenly, the blade strapped to his waist erupted with a blinding aura. Khalil stood totally clueless about this wild phenomenon. That blazing mana illuminated a tiny hidden scrap of parchment. Snatching it up, his mind raced, questioning what exactly resonated with his fierce aura. It was a hidden message from the exact vault holding the dragon heart. You who crave this ultimate power, walk away if death terrifies your soul. The young lord realized this was a secret trigger instantly. After absorbing those words, his mana flared up and the ancient parchment crumbled into literal dust. He knew for a fact his surging explosive mana caused this insane reaction. The sheer thrill of the mystery sent his hype levels straight through the roof. His mind raced with the possibility of discovering more hidden mythological loot. Right before the raw energy literally spelled out floating words. A phantom message exclusively for the one who devoured the dragon heart. This ancient spell only answered to his unique signature. It mocked his absolute greed for returning, revealing the ancient mage secretly favored such ruthless ambition. Khalil was absolutely stunned. Another insane trial had just begun. An ethereal voice echoed, declaring draconic energy is pure, devastating destruction. It represents a dominating force, completely unmatched in this world. A tier of supremacy the ancient wizard never grasped. Only our main character holds the potential to master this catastrophic strength, destined to wield it instinctively through his trusted combat style. Soaking in those epic words, the young lord gripped his blade. The phantom warned him to stay violently alert, dragging him straight toward his absolute weakest point, pushing his limits to the absolute bleeding edge. Catching the drift, our guy immediately sparked crackling magic from his palms. Perhaps this was the exact brutal lesson intended. But wait, a secret bonus awaited this ridiculously greedy successor. Suddenly, a massive chest overflowing with blinding mythological riches materialized from thin air. Buried within that ocean of gold, rested an incredibly bizarre bracelet. The legendary wizard was tossing our guy one final game-changing lifeline. And as he reached out to snatch the relic, pure chaos erupted. The artifact lunged like a venomous viper, violently coiling itself around his wrist. The ethereal voice introduced the Bracelet of Greed, a terrifying mana-devouring artifact. For any average human, this would be a totally fatal curse. But for our overpowered hero, it was an absolute blessing. Without this exact relic locking down his wildly raging aura, he could never tame the storm, and his body would literally explode in under 1 month. Khalil was totally clueless about this massive ticking time bomb hanging over his destiny. The Phantom Master boasted about being the sole human to achieve the legendary 8th tier, yet recognized this kid was the true inheritor of the Dragon Heart, a divine power forever denied to the wizard. He demanded the boy reject mediocrity intensely, praying his new successor would completely shatter his ancient records. The first brutal trial was cleared, surviving the heart's assimilation. Now he must fuel this core with limitless ambition, scaling to a godlike peak where absolutely nobody could rival him. The master commanded him to carve his own violent path. Nothing could withstand his catastrophic might. He possessed ultimate freedom and must never bow to another soul. This was the ruthless pride required of the wizard's true heir. Soaking in this epic revelation, a dangerously confident smirk crept across Khalil's face. He seriously started questioning his original goals. Was forging a massive empire and rewriting history truly his ultimate endgame anymore? Armed with literal draconic supremacy, all those pathetic mortal ambitions felt meaningless. Suddenly, the perfect terrifying vision for his entire destiny violently snapped into focus. He swore to force the entire empire to its knees in absolute recognition, fully aware this brutal world ruthlessly splits society between pathetic outsiders and privileged imperial elites. Flaunting a drastically transformed, insanely cool hairstyle, Khalil vowed to completely obliterate the current world order. When that fateful rematch with Olivan finally drops, he absolutely wouldn't flinch. He would stare straight into his enemy's soul with the unyielding gaze of an apex predator. Striding from that ancient vault with legendary drip, our guy silently honored his phantom master. From this moment forward, he was nobody's pawn. The true epic saga starts right now. Meanwhile, deep inside the imperial capital, the long-haired royal snake sat utterly fascinated, demanding Prime Minister Brian's calculated take on the chaos. The veteran politician claimed it was way too soon for absolute judgments, highlighting the massive void of crucial intel surrounding this massive incident. With the shadow agent officially eliminated, extracting the truth and punishing those deeply corrupt slacking officers would become a total nightmare. Execution. The first prince absorbed that brutal advice with dead serious focus. Brian never anticipated the Lorraine bloodline pulling such a hostile stunt straight inside McGovern borders. They clearly view the empire as trash. The crown prince countered, blaming his endless enemies. The continent probably thinks we are a complete joke. They must ruthlessly interrogate rival kings and shady nobles. Handing the reins over His Royal Highness trusted the Prime Minister. His current obsession, confirming if a literal kid actually captured that elite spy. Brian revealed the Count adopted this 12-year-old prodigy. The prince's mind was completely blown. The Count possesses an insane radar for talent. Too bad that powerhouse isn't backing him. But Brian smirked. A genius kid is still easily manipulated into their political web. The prince smirked in agreement. Apples fall far from the tree, mirroring their own mess, Brian noted. A massive red flag. The spy-catching prodigy vanished entirely from the count's territory. Frustration flaring, the royal demanded to know why a Golden Palace invitation had not dropped yet. His boiling point hit when the second prince barged into his secret meeting to drop a casual greeting. Since when did they fake sibling affection, ignoring the deadly tension his younger brother announced? His upcoming long-term exit from the palace. The heir realized his brother craved wandering. Regardless, their fortress remained secure, and he swore to keep it permanently locked down. Sensing the venom, the younger royal dropped his real bombshell. He casually name-dropped the infamous Slave King. Digging through cloudy memories, the elder pictured the rebel, who engineered that massive barbarian prison break last year. The younger prince smirked, confirming the legend was caged. Pure shock struck the air. Apparently, Viscount Haroun scored the absolute jackpot by capturing him. The long-haired prince narrowed his eyes, demanding why his rival crashed the room for useless gossip. Walking out, the younger sibling tossed back a warning that the crown prince desperately needed this intel. The challenge was crystal clear. His brother definitely tried recruiting that underworld boss, making this entire power play a colossal failure. The suffocating royal standoff finally dissolved. That kid is getting dangerous. Meanwhile, across an endless golden prairie, Khalil pushes his stallion forward. Hitting the brakes, he chugs some water. Scanning the horizon, he realizes the territory's border is dead ahead. Did his adopted family already realize he vanished into thin air? Doubting anyone actually misses him, pushing forward is his only option. He must hunt down Lorraine's rats and unlock high-tier magic. That dusty estate library only offered useless beginner spells. Lacking monster cores, his enchanted bracelet channels his raw mana. Now, he desperately needs a hardcore training ground. The Ivory Tower is basically a puppet for the royal bloodline. The Immortal Council hoards their research. Both factions exclusively train their own loyal pawns. They would instantly reject him. This leaves our boy with one legendary backup plan, the mighty dragon Mog. But that scaly beast sleeps light years away. Plus, with Khalil's pathetic current stats, surviving the gatekeepers is impossible. Our main character must aggressively level up his skills and build his own empire. His next destination guarantees massive experience points. Welcome to Tatur, the continent's ultimate lawless king-free paradise. He steps into Piasta's chaotic port. The streets are absolutely packed with shady merchants, hawking bizarre artifacts. Seeing this vibrant chaos, Khalil feels glad he stopped that monster wave. Blending into the crowd, he eavesdrops on merchants, flexing about massive supply contracts for local knights. The Order of Rio. Hearing that elite title ice shot through his veins, those ruthless paladins guard the Empire's eastern front line. With the Lorraine spy exposed, their deadly forces are surely mobilizing. Despite wanting neutrality, Khalil knows they serve Oliver's twisted agenda. Digging into their secrets sounds tempting. However, our hero lacks firepower, so dodging death is his top priority. Sticking to the master plan, he locates the massive Merchants' Union. He must conquer the deadly Fenian River to reach Tatur. Those raging waters are swarming with bloodthirsty leviathans. Surviving requires an absolute master navigator. Striding inside the kid demands entry into a top-tier guild. He desperately needed a guild to cross the river toward Tator. Running low on funds, he secretly dipped into Elliot's hidden stash. A brutal war was brewing. At the desk, the receptionist gave him a pitying look, crushing his hopes of booking that treacherous route. Khalil froze in absolute shock. Frustrated, he demanded the Revat Guild, but the woman just stared blankly, having never heard that name before. Whispers echoed through the crowded hall. Crossing that raging river was basically a terrifying death wish. Reaching the free city meant surviving a lawless port controlled by the ruthless Golden Lion. Khalil stood paralyzed, completely mind-blown by this altered reality. Desperate, he dropped the name Suan Hazer Revat's legendary leader. Yet the receptionist swore on her life she had never heard of him. Stepping outside, the young main character's mind raced. He clearly remembered meeting that legendary figure at age 15. Time was still on his side. Wandering the dusty streets, a chaotic mob suddenly grabbed his attention. The enraged crowd screamed for blood. They wanted to publicly execute a traitor who dared to help the savage barbarians. Then he spotted the bloodied prisoner, enduring endless torment. Khalil's breath hitched his eyes, blowing wide in sheer, unadulterated horror. The broken man was none other than Suan Hazer. Khalil's brain short-circuited completely. Listening closely to the vicious murmurs around him, the furious townsfolk kept cursing the Slave King, and that legendary title belonged entirely to the chained man bleeding before him. How did such a powerhouse end up so broken? Suddenly, an intimidating figure shoved through the furious mob, barking brutal orders. He roared that the scum committed supreme treason, demanding everyone to avert their eyes completely. Khalil instantly recognized Viscount Haroun. But why was this elite border guardian miles away from his distant territory in Piasta? Usually he backed powerhouses like Valsar and McGovern. Now, raw hatred burned in his eyes toward Suan. The crowd spat venom, branding Suan a filthy barbarian sympathizer. Yet this beaten outcast was the exact key Khalil desperately needed. Finding him in literal chains was never part of the plan. Khalil scrambled to calm his racing heartbeat. Back then, Oliver had connected them to orchestrate a devastating ambush on Luring. His overwhelming aura was simply unforgettable. How does this pathetic prisoner become a legendary powerhouse in just 3 short years? His mind spun in dizzying, confused circles. The timeline felt completely shattered. Still, Suan was the absolute only ticket he had to reach the promised free city. Letting this legend die here was unacceptable. Khalil sparked a crazy rescue mission, immediately sneaking toward the infamous Baron Raga's sprawling estate. Elite guards swarmed the entire perimeter. One glance told Khalil these weren't rookies, they were cold-blooded, battle-hardened veterans. But moving like a ghost guaranteed his safety. Raga was a cunning commoner, turned filthy rich noble hoarding mountains of dirty gold. But backing the first prince completely doomed him. Consumed by paranoia, he trusted absolutely no one. He carved out secret escape routes. Spotting a hidden stone door, Khalil smirked. His past life memories were still dead-on accurate. He originally uncovered this dark tunnel under Oliver's strict orders, hunting down the corrupt baron's illegal wealth and hidden tax evasion records. He never expected this ancient intel to save him today. A revolting stench hit him. Since the damp passage merged directly into the city's filthy sewers, navigating the muck, he quickly located a rusty ventilation shaft leading underground. A full-grown warrior would have zero chance squeezing through, but trapped inside this fragile, youthful body, being bite-sized definitely had major perks. Below, armed guards patrolled the bleak dungeon, while the legendary Slave King sat chained in absolute darkness. Crushing regret consumed Suan. He had gambled everything on a noble title and lost. Drowning in bitter isolation, a brutal guard smashed his weapon against the iron bars, demanding pure silence before storming off down the dark hall. Grateful his bones were intact, Suan finally moved. Slowly, he slipped a hidden hairpin loose. It was time to break free. Suddenly, heavy, ominous footsteps echoed through the dungeon, instantly triggering his razor-sharp survival instincts. 3 shadows approached. He tracked a guard and a knight, but the third aura felt entirely mysterious. The second prince stepped into the grime. Immediately, the guard commanded the chained man to kneel, announcing royal business. Crouched tight in the dusty vents, Khalil watched the insane drama unfold. Oliver boldly claimed he had been dying for this fateful meeting. Peering through the grate, Khalil gasped. His legendary target was actually sitting right there. The Empire's second prince just casually dropped the Slave King title. Khalil's mind exploded with burning questions. What twisted game was Oliver playing? Suan played dumb, claiming total ignorance of that epic title. But the prince smirked, revealing the barbarians worshipped him as exactly that, because he was the legendary hero who smuggled chained souls out of the Empire. Oliver accused him of funneling slaves into Traitor right before the king's brutal extermination order dropped. Suan just glared, keeping his mouth locked tight. Everything finally clicked. This explained why the legendary king vanished after the heretic purge ended. He realized Oliver had secretly forged a massive alliance with him. Cutting the small talk, the prince plunged straight into his dangerous offer. Unveiling his grand scheme, the prince waited. But Suan smirked sarcastically, asking how a filthy commoner could ever serve high royalty. The royal guard's blade hummed, ready to execute him, but the prince raised a hand, sparing the boy's undeniable value. Suan mocked him, asking if he was the first or second heir, since street whispers called the third prince an idiot. The royal realized he hadn't formally dropped his name. Stepping up, he announced himself as Oliver the Second Prince, begging for a crucial favor. His so-called noble goal, saving the barbarian tribes, a desperate mission since the northern clans were crumbling. The royal pushed his idealistic narrative, claiming imperial citizens and wild tribes shared the exact same blood-pledging rescue at any brutal cost. He desperately needed this prisoner's strategic mind. Watching from the shadows, Khalil's blood boiled. He saw right through the prince's masking, purely toxic manipulation, a total scam. This exact saintly performance had completely fooled Khalil in his past life too, and it seemed Suan was totally swallowing the bait, until the captive flashed a wicked grin. He wasn't fooled, warning His Highness to stop spitting absolute garbage in his cell. Royal blood or not, that ridiculous request was a pure suicide mission. Hearing this extreme disrespect, the ancient knight's fury erupted. Veins popped on the old man's forehead, ready to sever the prisoner's head from his shoulders, yet Oliver blocked the deadly strike again. That bodyguard was the legendary Count Redak. Khalil's jaw practically dropped. This beast was the absolute combat master, who trained all 3 princes. He even commanded the elite royal vanguard. Even at 70, this monster remained an unstoppable force, one of the top 5 legendary warriors alive. A true icon post-Oracle era. If a fight breaks out, this veteran is a walking disaster. Keeping cool, the prince questioned his heavy suspicion. Firing back, Suan challenged the royal's math, asking the exact price to smuggle one single barbarian to safety. 5 gold coins per head. That heavy cash could feed a capital citizen for 5 whole months. Only the extremely wealthy could afford that dangerous river crossing. Thinking it was just a funding issue, Oliver confidently promised unlimited imperial gold. But the hardened survivor immediately hit him with reality. Did this sheltered kid even know the brutal Free City rules? Refugees must hand over 4 entire gold coins straight to the ruling Golden Lion. That single leftover coin, barely enough scrap to survive the slums, assuming they didn't get slaughtered. And when that measly cash inevitably dries up, their miserable lives would be brutally snuffed out. That cursed territory is an absolute meat grinder. Throwing cash at this nightmare won't fix a damn thing. Suan had watched oceans of blood spill, abandoning his people in that hellhole. A pampered royal could never grasp that trauma. Spitting the bitter truth, the captive confessed he hadn't rescued anyone absolutely powerless to change fate. Barking at the prince to get lost, he finally revealed his terrifying secret, a blazing crimson iris. Khalil's breath hitched, seeing that mythical eye exposed. In his previous timeline, that cursed eye stayed strictly bandaged. The truth clicked. He was a rare survivor of the Red Eye clan, mercilessly massacred by the Empire. No wonder he held such deep-rooted imperial trauma. Boiling with rage, the prisoner spat. That fake salvation or a guillotine execution felt identically hopeless. But if His Highness truly wanted to play holy savior for the savage tribes, he needed to completely surrender the Free City to him. That chaotic zone was their only shot at absolute freedom. Khalil was totally stunned by this burning aggression, since his future memories painted him as a purely cold and calculated mastermind. Refusing to back down, Oliver calmly stated the broken man just needed time, refusing to abandon his recruitment. Losing a tactical genius like him would be a tragic waste. Leaving the dungeon, the prince swore their paths would cross again. The iron gate slammed. In the chilling silence, our protagonist finally connected the historical dots. Suan ultimately allied with his hated royal enemies in the original timeline, simply because Oliver abolished the vicious heretic purges. But Khalil carried a dark secret: the prince would transform into an absolute monster upon taking the throne. And the regressor absolutely refused to let history repeat. Back in the pitch-black cell, Swan's acute senses spiked, catching a faint footstep approaching. Stepping over unconscious guards, Khalil casually pushed the heavy iron door open, asking if the captive had managed to shatter those pathetic chains yet. Because playtime was over, he was officially being drafted. Completely shell-shocked, the hardened survivor demanded to know who this crazy kid was. Flashing a confident smirk, our protagonist declared he was his new boss. Tossing a few shiny gold coins, he mocked the ridiculous river crossing fee. After eavesdropping on that royal drama, Khalil trashed his original plan. He flat-out refused to surrender even one single copper piece to that greedy Golden Lion. Suan internally groaned at his cursed luck. First a delusional royal, now a suicidal teenager, but then Khalil swore a blood oath to conquer the town. That insane vow sent shockwaves through the prisoner's mind, but breaking out was priority number one. Suan heavily doubted the kid's massive claims. Since the mighty Imperial army had completely failed to capture that lawless zone, a literal child doing it, impossible. He seriously wondered if dungeon madness was making him hallucinate. His brain had to be broken from the endless torture. Halting his steps, Khalil locked eyes, promising zero regrets if he followed his lead. He demanded Suan watch his rise to absolute power closely. The young regressor planned to storm Tatar, forge a legendary reputation in blood, and eventually transform it into an untouchable sanctuary for the barbarian tribes. Utterly confused by this wild ambition, Suan fiercely refused to partner with another imperial punk. Khalil smoothly validated him, admitting that bearing that cursed crimson eye completely justified his burning hatred for the corrupt empire. Especially after witnessing his people get completely eradicated, mountains of corpses piled up during the savage heretic hunts. Sure, Prince Oliver would eventually smash that brutal law upon claiming the emperor's crown, but only a pathetic handful of survivors would be left breathing. Khalil, however, was rewriting destiny. Suan was completely clueless about this kid's real endgame. But our MC needed to save countless lives, and this rugged captain was his golden ticket, so he demanded his loyalty. Suan thought the prince was totally unhinged, but this mysterious kid was on a whole different level of crazy. Suan challenged if this brat could actually pull off a jailbreak. Honestly, if breaking out was the only hurdle, our overpowered protagonist was insanely underwhelmed. Suddenly, the royal guards cornered them, sending pure panic through Suan's veins. But a wicked smirk crossed Khalil's face. The real entertainment was finally starting. He was snatching Oliver's ultimate pawn right under his nose. Channeling explosive mana into his blade, the boy triggered a devastating strike into the earth. The shockwave pulverized the solid dungeon walls, coughing up a massive smokescreen of rubble. It was the absolute perfect window for their epic getaway. Fleeing into the dense woods, they vanished from sight. Just minutes into their sprint, Suan was already gasping for air, his lungs absolutely burning. He gasped, shocked. This kid obliterated a noble's estate without flinching. Talk about zero hesitation. Right then, Khalil dropped his magical disguise, letting his true hair and eye colors violently bleed back into reality. The truth hit Suan like a truck. Khalil was a fellow barbarian, yet the stunned captain frantically called his bluff. Barbarians possessing magic was biologically impossible. It was a mythical power, totally out of their league, making them prime targets for brutal heretic hunting squads. Ignoring the accusation, Khalil locked eyes and coldly asked if he wanted to flip this twisted world entirely. His raw muscle was absolutely vital. And honestly, Swan was already getting totally hooked by our protagonist's insanely magnetic aura. The raging river blocking their path was an absolute death trap. Massive violent whirlpools threatened to swallow their tiny boat. Still, our MC was heavily determined to conquer the crossing. Despite the lethal hazards, the terrifying sheer force of the wild rapids actually left him super impressed. Swan found the kid's deadpan chill absolutely creepy. Any normal person would be screaming right now. Accepting this monster as a fellow barbarian felt entirely surreal. Dripped out in high-class fits, he radiated pure elite noble energy, plus casually wielding high-tier magic. It completely shattered all logic. Suwon barked that this cursed route was about to get intensely worse. The kid better stay highly alert. One slip meant instant game over, but Khalil just smirked, ordering the sweating captain to stop stressing and keep steering. Irritated, Suwon bit his tongue. He figured anyone unhinged enough to solo a maximum security prison break clearly had a few screws totally loose. This guy was no innocent child. He radiated the heavy blood-soaked aura of a legendary battlefield veteran. Flexing his insane muscles, Suwon launched a heavy grappling hook. It violently smashed into a jagged boulder, anchoring their lifeline with pinpoint absolute precision. Snapping the other end to the deck, sent the boat into a violent, seasick frenzy. But riding that brutal tension was the only way to conquer the deadly rapids. Khalil watched in awe. Suwon was wrestling the furious river using nothing but raw, unadulterated physical muscle, completely zero magic involved. The man was an absolute prodigy. Catching the captain sweating through his hardcore labor, the mischievous boy decided to casually grill him with rapid-fire questions. He probed about the barbarians' brutal living conditions on the continent. Suwon snapped back, calling it a totally brain-dead question. His people were barely clinging to life. Thanks to the ruthless heretic purges, they were treated worse than dirt, stripped of even basic slave rights. One look at his scarred face told the whole tragic story. Despite being a half-blood, the Empire still mercilessly hunted him like stray prey. Having barbarian blood erased your humanity in this empire? Smirking, Khalil instantly flipped his switch, playing the annoying 10-year-old card. Pestering him non-stop, he pointed at the cryptic ink carved into the captain's wrist. Suwon defensively brushed it off as absolutely nothing important, but the truth hit deeper. It symbolized his mother's fallen tribe, a permanent scar of her tragically forbidden romance with a despised Empire man. Khalil sharply noted that toxic family trauma had deeply poisoned the captain's hardened soul. Sweating bullets, Suwon screamed at the kid to grip the rails for dear life. They were driving straight into the river's most chaotic death zone. Trapped inside a maze of roaring whirlpools, the captain fiercely slashed the tension rope, slingshotting them safely out of the watery hellscape. They survived the ultimate hazard. Khalil was genuinely blown away by his crazy maneuvering. But suddenly, a massive, spine-chilling shadow darkened the deep waters below. Panic spiked inside Suwon. An absolutely colossal aquatic beast breached the surface, coiling dangerously tight around their fragile wooden boat. A literal Sea King, Suwon froze in pure terror, totally helpless against this mythical, overpowered monster. Khalil coolly told the captain to chill. A true Sea King was insanely larger than this pathetic, oversized guppy. This was merely a river serpent, a total baby. Still, the rabid beast lunged violently, instantly shattering a huge chunk of their ship's hull. Igniting his blade with blazing mana, our MC smirked. It was finally his time to shine, fearlessly rushing the giant beast. Smoothly sidestepping its lethal bite, he found the ultimate blind spot for an epic one-shot execution. Plunging his glowing steel deep into the monster's skull, he overloaded the blade with terrifying magical energy, obliterating its head with one vicious horizontal cleave. Suwon's jaw literally dropped at that god-tier power. You'd need peak Imperial Knight status for that, yet our overpowered protagonist brushed it off like absolute child's play. With the apex predator effortlessly speedrun, Khalil instantly flipped his personality switch back, bombarding the stunned captain with another endless wave of pesky preteen questions. He casually ordered the captain forward. Soon, the epic artificial stronghold of Traitor Island finally emerged right over the horizon. Known as the Free City, it's the ultimate sanctuary for barbarians desperately escaping the brutal heretic hunts. Captain Suwon stands at the dead center of this massive operation, acting as the sole navigator who can conquer that deadly river. He claimed docking at the completely lawless port was their only option, brushing off the blazing red flags. He supposedly had deep connections there, yet extreme danger still lurked for the kid. Khalil suddenly recalled his heavy words to the prince, realizing it was straight-up cap. But Suwon remains entirely clueless about the dark reality unfolding. Khalil knows refugees couldn't possibly afford 5 gold coins, yet their population in that hellhole just keeps multiplying. This proves Suwon secretly tanks those extortion fees for the Golden Lion. The boy completely realizes this captain will inevitably become the absolute anchor for these desperate barbarians in this brutal reality, making it crystal clear he shouldn't stress over the Golden Lion right now and must simply keep smuggling refugees to this shadowy island. The second his boots hit the docks, heavily armed thugs swarmed our boy, yet he calmly swore to uphold his absolute promise to Suwon. vowing to conquer and hand that very city over to him. The captain remains utterly speechless watching the mysterious kid who dragged him to this island suddenly clash against the armed mob. Those arrogant thugs initially thought it would be an easy sweep until they got absolutely annihilated by sheer overwhelming force. Khalil stepped right over their crushed bodies. Spitting blood, they desperately demanded his identity, but the boy just leveled his cold blade at one throat, commanding the shaking thug to lead him straight to the Golden Lion, promising absolute carnage if denied. Deep inside the Golden Lion's lavish office, a desperate man screamed for mercy, only to be ruthlessly transformed into a lifeless frozen object, his stiffened corpse violently tossed onto the cold floor. He became mere twisted room decor, joining the horrifying collection of previous victims who, according to the twisted Golden Lion, received a supposedly fair chance to gamble their lives on a single coin toss. His true name, Quran. His terrified underlings consider his sick hobby pure sadism. Day after day, they scrub fresh blood from those floors, while the Golden Lion invents a brand new psychotic excuse, just to casually slaughter another soul. Yet, this maniac genuinely considers himself merciful, claiming he grants a massive golden opportunity to trashed lives that were already destined to perish. Right in the middle of his twisted philosophical monologue, a massive crash shattered his office doors. Boiling with explosive rage, he barked at his trembling lackeys to find the culprit. As they scrambled, the Golden Lion's eyes widened, suddenly realizing a massive surge of pure magical energy. However, he quickly snapped back to his sick priorities, viciously stopping his grunts from clearing the fresh corpses out of his bloody sanctuary. Meanwhile, back at the docks, a bleeding thug confessed the Golden Lion chilled in the tallest looming tower, begging to guide our badass protagonist there in exchange for his pathetic life. Khalil offered a chillingly polite thanks for the solid intel, but noticing the absolute zero-degree murder in Khalil's gaze, the thug desperately sobbed for mercy. Suan instantly jumped in, pleading to spare the trembling loser, since he originally started as a helpless refugee. But our merciless protagonist gave 0 drops of care. A truly good soul would have guarded their moral integrity at all costs. Suan shivered at that bone-chilling ruthlessness. Khalil remains absolutely certain that choosing to serve a demonic boss instantly strips away any right to basic humanity. He then locked eyes with Suan, demanding his answer to this heavy moral dilemma. Should this corrupted refugee face mercy or the Reaper? Suan's suffocating silence gave our boy the exact answer he craved, permanently extinguishing the thug's miserable life. This dark city doesn't run purely on freedom, and true liberation isn't something casually handed out. The fool who just violently discovered the afterlife had ultimately sealed his own bloody fate. Khalil told Suan to drop his heavy guilt. Deep down, the captain is completely consumed by remorse for dragging desperate refugees into this violent hellscape. Khalil declared the only real fix is totally transforming this shadow-drenched island from the ground up. Suddenly, a mysterious figure watches our boy, oozing an intensely dangerous aura. Stepping from the shadows, the battered stranger begged for backup. The guy looked absolutely shredded from battle. Turning around, Khalil's eyes widened in pure shock, instantly recognizing the legendary Aiden Hamill. The bruised stranger claimed he barely survived a bandit ambush and desperately needed aid. Recognizing him instantly, a totally wicked smirk flashed across Khalil's face, realizing the Oliveran Empire's shadow network is executing a flawless masterclass. Historically, 7 legendary pillars built the unstoppable Oliveran Empire Bran, a mind-blowing tactical genius, and Surga, a ridiculously overpowered battle mage. You also had Meister, a legendary merchant dominating the entire continent's economy, and the ruthless war god Zakin, a man carved from pure ice. Captain Swan himself was an epic pillar standing right alongside our overpowered protagonist. Finally, there stood Aiden, an absolute ghost who controlled the continent's underground intel network. Khalil's mind races fiercely, calculating exactly when this spy master managed to infiltrate this hellhole. That proves Oliveran strategically abandoned Suan, heavily plotting a massive takeover of Tatuar, against all odds. Recognizing the battered spy, Suan revealed he had personally smuggled this exact guy and his sister inside. That massive detail totally blindsided our protagonist, just discovering they arrived as a duo. Aiden frantically explained he lost her during the chaotic escape, desperately needing to track her down before it's too late. But our sharp-eyed boy immediately clocks the massive cap. He's absolutely positive that mysterious woman is actually Zuke, who, despite her stunningly massive and perfectly symmetrical eye-catching assets, is actually a terrifyingly lethal assassin. If this wild theory hits, the Golden Lion is dead meat. Meanwhile, Aiden nervously wonders who this mysterious blonde kid truly is. Their master plan was forcing Swan to clash with the Golden Lion, but suddenly a shout shattered the silence. The fugitive was spotted. The Golden Lion's goons had them completely surrounded. Drawing their weapons, these low-level thugs planned to capture the entire crew. Fleeing wasn't in Khalil's vocabulary. Blinking right into the front line, he unsheathed his blade, ready to unleash his absolute masterful swordsmanship, to brutally teach them a lesson. The clash ended before the first drop of blood fell. Aiden completely froze. absolutely terrified by the boy's monstrous blade skills. He already knew some unknown kid had rescued Suan's precious daughter earlier, but he never imagined an absolute demon like this. Smirking, our main character casually asked if Aiden wanted his sister, offering an alliance. But Khalil was already totally exhausted by Aiden's fake acting, perfectly pinpointing where the rogue hid his blades. Sensing Aiden's killer intent pulsing in the shadows, Khalil demanded the exact coordinates of the Golden Lion's main headquarters immediately. The boss was hiding inside the towering skyscraper, supposedly guarded by 50 elite lackeys, trusting absolutely no one around him. Khalil immediately multiplied that massive threat count by 2. Meanwhile, sheer panic paralyzed Suan, completely clueless on breaching enemy lines. But our main character thrives on pure chaos. Choosing a brutal frontal assault, he realized Oliver had exploited these mercenaries to conquer the island, but Khalil was rewriting history today. Locking eyes with Aiden, he demanded backup, warning him to drop the lies since he already saw through everything. He needed to hijack Aiden's magic for one epic combo. Khalil was totally dead set on claiming this entire city. Meanwhile, the Golden Lion's crew desperately hunted the source of an ominous rumble. Suddenly, a scout screamed that absolute disaster had struck. A raging inferno was devouring the docks, blazing straight from the harbor, completely engulfing their precious fleet. Witnessing the apocalyptic destruction, sheer terror gripped the Golden Lion, as the wildfire mutated into an unstoppable beast. Behind the scenes, our main character had sparked a tiny, deadly flame, launching pure fire magic straight into highly explosive cargo. Total anarchy was just minutes away. Now Aiden had to unleash his spell, channeling immense mana to blast gale force winds into the blaze. This catastrophic elemental combo amplified the raging inferno tenfold. Fueled by Khalil's initial spark, the hellfire violently consumed everything in its path. Only a single solitary vessel survived the blazing wrath. Pitch black smoke completely blinded the enemy guards. The battlefield was perfectly primed for Khalil's brutal shadow assassination phase. He ordered Swan to anchor their only escape ship while commanding Aiden to keep fueling the massive firestorm with wind magic. Khalil confidently vowed to solo the rest. Pushing deeper into the island, the remaining thugs heavily underestimated the absolute monster approaching them. Meanwhile, blind fury consumed the Golden Lion after losing his entire armada. His grunts desperately scrambled to extinguish the raging hellfire, but suffocating smog choked their lungs before they could even move. A ghost started claiming souls. The Bandit King quickly realized a lethal predator was hunting from the toxic shadows, as his elite guards literally dropped like flies. Frantically scanning the toxic fog for his unseen enemy, the desperate crime boss suddenly felt a vicious sting, a razor-sharp slash tearing his shoulder. But the bloodbath had only just begun for Khalil. As the monstrous bandit finally locked eyes with him, our main character knew this tyrant was a ruthless slaughterer with countless kills, which was hilariously ironic considering Khalil was a reincarnated Grim Reaper himself. Despite taking critical damage, the boss mocked the kid's cocky attitude, and insanely his torn flesh rapidly regenerated. Khalil remained completely unfazed by the shallow strike. Trapped inside a physically weak vessel, he was dying to unleash his legendary aura, but he absolutely had to mask his true power. Sensing lethal intent radiating from the boy's blade, the boss realized he faced a master and instantly removed all his limiters, vowing to make this brat suffer. Analyzing the villain's shifting stance, Khalil immediately recognized the infamous water sword technique. Massive amounts of hydro energy warped into a devastating cyclone. As the epic clash escalated, Suan successfully secured their getaway ride. Aiden watched, utterly mesmerized. This absolute madman just dived headfirst into the inferno fearlessly. Nearby, Suan highly praised Aiden's insane stamina in sustaining the windstorm, though the mage admitted his mana was drained. His hands violently trembled. However, Aiden realized their original script was completely destroyed. Since Suan was supposed to be the one fighting the boss, he understood that, inevitably, the imprisoned slave king would break free, but this crazy kid shattered destiny. Despite looking like a frail little middle schooler, he casually slaughtered elite assassins. His blade work was absolutely god tier, seamlessly weaving second-class spells into combat. His potential growth is genuinely terrifying. Aiden calculated that securing this overpowered prodigy as an ally was the ultimate jackpot. He vowed to witness the boy's true ceiling firsthand. Meanwhile, Khalil entered a state of absolute flow, zeroed in on his target, fluidly evading the Golden Lion's roaring water vortex. The Bandit King was visibly sweating, totally shocked that a kid's raw power deflected his heavy strikes. They were locked in a completely dead-even stalemate, sparking blistering rage inside the crime boss. Tracking the incoming assault, Khalil deduced. This technique hit like an unrelenting tsunami, a bone-crushing pressure. Yet he smoothly sidestepped oblivion, relentlessly suffocating the bandit with vicious counterattacks. The bandit realized this brat was constantly hunting for his throat, plus that glowing blade radiated an unnatural, terrifying aura. Each clash shattered his water magic completely. Desperate to assert dominance, the boss swore he would crush this arrogant kid at any cost. He threatened to scatter the boy's mangled corpse to the ocean, spitting venomous insults to mask his own rising panic. Khalil just smirked, For a supposedly ruthless crime lord, this guy sure loved to run his mouth. His own signature tactics were failing miserably, sparking pure rage. Eyes going cold, Khalil casually dropped a bombshell he knew Kiran Majid. The bandit froze in absolute shock. He had buried that true family name deep in the shadows years ago. Khalil exposed his hidden truth, the rightful heir of a loyal Imperial Navy admiral framed as a traitor. His own mother perished by her husband's blade, leaving him totally broken. This entire agonizing nightmare sparked directly from the new emperor's bloody grab for absolute power, which completely shattered his father's naval legacy. However, dragging that dark family trauma into the light just ignited absolute fury. Roaring, he summoned a massive, devastating hydrovortex. He was ready to obliterate everything just to end this fatal clash. This lethal water strike would relentlessly hunt the kid down until his final breath faded away. The main character stood perfectly still, letting the raging torrent approach before effortlessly weaving through the onslaught. The boss gloated that escape was impossible. Channeling his entire physical mass into the blade, he prepared a heavy match-ending strike. Certain no mere kid could block this overwhelming force, his deadly slashes inched terrifyingly close. Khalil finally snapped into action, flawlessly deflecting the crushing blow with zero effort. Yet the nightmare just started. Inch by inch, the boss lost his grip entirely, stripped of his weapon by an ironclad defense. This opened a perfect fatal blind spot, allowing Khalil to ruthlessly carve into his flesh. Back inside that hellish, cursed tower, our boy slaughtered endless nightmare monsters. He battled beasts heavily plated in steel fluid abominations made of slime and terrifying airborne predators. Some defied sheer physical damage entirely. Surviving that brutal abyss was literal psychological torture. And through that trauma, Khalil unlocked a divine martial realm, the legendary 5 steps of the sword. These were god-tier combat forms. Each ascending tier unleashed apocalyptic damage. Right now, he merely triggered stage 1. Judging by the villain's twisted expression, the impact was absolutely agonizing. Stripped of his weapon and bleeding out, he gasped for air. He finally grasped a chilling reality. A single extra inch of reach would have decapitated him instantly. Panic set in as he recognized this was no ordinary brat. Staring into those dead, cold eyes, he sensed the Grim Reaper creeping closer. Fueling his fading aura with pure wrath, he screamed defiance at the young monster, manifesting a colossal tsunami of magical energy for one final desperate clash. Blinded by his own frenzy, the boss left a massive blind spot. Blind fury kills tactical logic, rendering his blade work completely useless. Khalil dashed forward with terrifying swagger. The crime lord panicked, realizing this overpowered kid had somehow ramped up his speed. Flesh tore in an instant. The agonizing shockwave forced the leader to drop his heavy blade once more. But this brutal playground was just opening up. Khalil relentlessly bullied him into the dirt. Craving a bit more entertainment, the main character launched a savage kick, sending the thug flying. Khalil stood freezing cold, yet that rib-shattering strike was lethal. Coughing up dark crimson, the broken boss finally respected the boy's insane combat mastery. Defeated, he ordered the kid to deliver the final execution. But he warned that dying in this harbor would turn the entire island into hostile enemies. Hiding in the shadows, Aiden knew that threat was absolutely legit. Raw power alone couldn't fix a massive gang war. This dock was merely the gateway into Tato, a notoriously savage underground realm. Yet the main character smirked, claiming the defeated man misunderstood his entire vibe. He did not come seeking petty brawls. He arrived to conquer the entire city, and his patience for idle chatter was dead. Exhausting his final drop of mercy, Khalil hoisted his blade, fully prepared to sever the crying villain's head. Lurking in the premium VIP shadows, Aiden mentally spiraled as his grand schemes collapsed. It was only a ticking clock, until the underworld elites discovered this massacre, nuking all his careful espionage. He completely underestimated the boy's monstrous, overpowered nature. Making the nightmare worse, Khalil suddenly barked Aiden's exact name, demanding to know why a rat was stalking his fight. Sweating bullets, Aiden spun a fake story about seeking his lost sister, secretly freaking out over how his flawless stealth failed. He played the desperate brother perfectly. However, Khalil internally smirked, sensing the girl quietly observing them from the darkness. Playing along with the charade, Khalil offered to help raid the city for her. Meanwhile, a terrifying dread choked Aiden's heart. Realizing this smiling demon saw right through his soul. 4 brutal crime syndicates run this island, and once news drops. To crush their next move, Khalil shattered the Golden Lion's blade, hidden deep within the steel, the boss's coveted token. He marveled at his own weapon's absurd durability. It just sliced through legendary-grade material like wet tissue paper. What was this thing? Suwon wondered if the kid planned to rule as a boss. Khalil just smirked, ruling no. He was going hunting. Flashing his newly claimed token meant skipping the low-level trash mobs and instantly unlocking top-tier VIP privileges. But his real target lurked deep inside the city walls. A single boss token simply wouldn't cut it. Elsewhere, a heavyweight boss dozed off surrounded by sculpted beauties, but Khalil rudely crashed the heavy breather's sweet dreams. "You, the boss," Khalil demanded. The massive guy jolted awake in a sweaty panic, screaming at the random kid. The girls instantly bolted. The human wrecking ball shrieked for his guard, Carve, but our absolute menace of an MC chuckled. Carve is taking a permanent dirt nap outside alongside his entire crew. Khalil knew this shivering giant was filthy rich. Now a literal teenager was extorting him. Flexing the golden token, Khalil declared himself the lawless port's supreme new ruler. The bald heavyweight's eyes bulged, recognizing the golden lion's emblem. That single piece of metal meant one terrifying reality. The lion was dead. Khalil stated it was a fair duel, pointing to his companion as living proof. Spotting the infamous Swan Hazer backing the kid, the bald boss instantly swallowed his pride and bowed to Khalil's absolute authority. Hearing zero alarms, he realized his entire port security had been ruthlessly wiped out, playing it incredibly smart. He nervously asked what the monster wanted. Khalil demanded full VIP access to the underground black market. This shaking giant was the ultimate gateway. It was time for the boss to clock in and do his job. The bald guy stammered that it was too early. Opening the shadow market strictly required 2 official bosses to authorize. Khalil just smirked. He held one boss token in his hand, and a second living boss sat sweating right across from him. Unless he wanted to join his guards, he needed to open it immediately. Khalil was hunting an ultra-rare hidden artifact, an epic item completely unknown to the world. This artificial island thrived on 3 exclusives: illegal goods, absolute freedom, and forbidden intel. You could trade literally anything in the shadows. Every new year, high-ranking nobles secretly flocked here to raid the black market's treasures, keeping this corrupt paradise utterly independent. After Khalil's terrifyingly gentle persuasion, the sweating heavyweight scrambled to open the underground exchange. His confused subordinate whispered, asking if the other bosses approved. Trembling violently, the giant swore he would handle them later, and frantically ordered his man to treat this terrifying teenager like absolute royalty. He dared to question the kid's identity, but instantly realized the lethal mistake of that arrogant tone. Sweating bullets, the unhealthy mobster commanded the gates to unlock instantly, forcing his subordinate into absolute submission. Trembling at the thought of underworld vengeance, he aggressively washed his hands of the entire sketchy situation. The shadow market stays sealed all year, opening it after a mere 3 months. That literally defied a lifetime of strict underworld protocol. Khalil paused. He interrogated Kama about this broken schedule, demanding to know why the gates swung wide this early. The terrified guard swore total ignorance, blaming the former boss. Khalil's instincts flared. Was this Duchala's grand scheme? That lethal shadow assassin used to run these streets. If someone bypassed her system, she would absolutely strike. The gatekeeper laid down the absolute law. Once you step foot inside any merchant's domain, purchasing is mandatory. The clock gives you 60 minutes. Smirking, our overpowered MC brushed off the strict warning. He'd finish in a heartbeat. Countless lethal weapons lined the neon-lit stalls. Stepping back into this gritty underworld felt intensely nostalgic. Cash buys literal miracles here, but our guy already locked onto his exact target. That ticking timer meant nothing. Kicking open his chosen door, he confronted a mysterious figure lurking in the shadows. Khalil reached for a relic, but the grumpy shopkeeper instantly snapped, warning him not to taint the damaged goods. Shocked by an actual customer, the old hermit dismissed him. He claimed this dusty vault held nothing but ancient garbage. Khalil smirked. He craved the unknown artifacts hidden from human comprehension. That bold statement hooked the merchant's absolute attention. Khalil saw through the disguise immediately. This wasn't a man, but the legendary gnome Caliph. Sensing his cover blowing, panic flooded the gnome's eyes. To shatter the tension, Khalil dropped his illusion, flashing his authentic hair color. This proved he wasn't mere mortal trash. Yet terror consumed the gnome barbarians, wielding magic that defied reality. His dragon companions spilled the lore. Gnomes hoarded epic treasures for bribes, forging the most overpowered magical weapons imaginable. Forget the tragic extinction rumors. They survived, and this specific guy acts as the ultimate underworld courier. Khalil demanded the exact package meant for the Platinum Dragon. Paralyzed by fear, the gnome gasped, questioning his intel. Our MC cooled the air. He meant zero harm, but he knew Mog's requested artifact held god-tier potential. The gnome bristled at that disrespectful disrespect. He worshipped that legendary dragon, his ultimate savior from the brutal past. Khalil demanded the relic. He knew the colossal beast slumbered deeply, and he understood the sacred ancient pact. Gnomes pledge artifacts to honor life debts with 3 years left on this contract. The merchant began sweating oceans. Calling it pure delusion, he desperately shoved random shiny weapons forward. These were insanely rare dungeon drops, virtually impossible to loot. The gnome banked on their astronomical price tags, betting this random kid would instantly go broke. Glancing at the shiny garbage, Khalil deadpanned, asking if this was his entire pathetic stash. Shaking intensely, the gnome defended his ultra-rare inventory. Khalil smirked. The legends about these sneaky hoarders were absolutely accurate. They always concealed the true top-tier loot. Khalil locked his sights on his prize, the legendary four-fanged ring. That was the ultimate prize. Defeated, the gnome slowly surrendered a breathtakingly crafted mythical lockbox. Buzzing with raw dwarven enchantments, this was Mog's sacred gift to mankind after the cataclysmic Oracle War. Those fangs siphon life force to manifest an impenetrable shield. Feed it more aura, and the defense becomes absolutely godlike. But there's a brutal curse. Its gluttony has zero limits, easily draining a normal user straight to their grave. Thanks to Khalil's monstrous physical stats, he could tank the drain effortlessly. The bewildered gnome questioned reality, demanding proof of funds for such god-tier gear. Smirking, Khalil dumped out a glittering pouch challenging the price tag. A master appraiser couldn't miss this flex. The old merchant's jaw instantly slammed into the floor. Pure, unadulterated elemental magic stones. Hypnotized by the sheer wealth, the greedy gnome instantly relinquished his grip on the relic. The transaction was sealed. Khalil slid the ominous artifact onto his finger, and the jagged fangs violently bit into his flesh. Exhausted by the sheer tension, the gnome pleaded for answers. This kid possessed forbidden knowledge about his lost civilization. He desperately begged for the fate of his scattered people. Playing it cool, Khalil shrugged indifferently. He'd crossed paths with them long ago. While their exact coordinates faded, the sanctuary's name remained burned in his memory. Hope ignited the gnome's desperate eyes, begging for the hidden sanctuary's location. Khalil dangled the bait, perfectly willing to talk. But they stood in the shadow market. Secrets cost fortunes here. The crushed merchant instantly realized his brutal mistake. That intel dwarfed his entire treasury. Khalil flashed a devious grin. The real hustle was just beginning. Echoes of his past life resurfaced. The old man's previous revelation proved he could have prevented his people's absolute slaughter. If only he possessed their coordinates before the brutal war. Khalil finally secured that crucial intel during this fateful encounter. The underworld gatekeeper flinched as the trapdoor slammed open, stunned to see the kid emerging so fast. Flashing his freshly looted gear, our hero smirked, proving this raid was an absolute breeze. The guard's jaw dropped at the kid's legendary haul. You couldn't even farm that epic gear in an S-rank dungeon. That armored gauntlet was pure Tier 1 treasure. Packed with insane durability, it completely nullifies magic attacks. Those master gnome blacksmiths truly forged the most overpowered artifacts. Strolling down the alley, a shadow rogue ambushed our hero. The killer craved a quick assassination, entirely unaware of the gauntlet's lethal hidden blade. Khalil deflected the lethal strike effortlessly, instantly reducing his would-be executioner to a lifeless corpse. Testing out his shiny new weapon felt incredibly satisfying. Suwan desperately sprinted over to check his condition, freezing in absolute awe upon recognizing the boy bought that legendary gauntlet. Khalil casually nodded, purposely keeping his freshly acquired magical ring a complete secret from his ally. Suwan frantically warned that underworld whispers were exploding, guaranteeing a massive wave of bounty hunters would ambush him soon. But our protagonist remains completely unfazed. He desperately wants those guild bosses to hear the hype, casually asking about Aiden's current status. The captain remained clueless, having lost track of the guy recently. Shrugging it off, Khalil decided not to stress over such a minor detail. Now it was time to confront Duchala. This sent Suwan into pure panic mode, especially since midnight had already struck. Barely 24 hours had passed since hitting this deadly island, yet they had practically confronted every major syndicate boss. Deep inside her luxurious fortress, Duchala discovered the secret black market's unauthorized activation. As the actual shadow broker, her blood boiled. Kama, bypassing her supreme authority, was an unforgivable insult that demanded absolute retaliation. She suspected Kama formed an alliance with the exact monster who slaughtered the Golden Lion. Countering this unseen threat felt paralyzing, while the killer lurked in the shadows. Furthermore, since this mysterious kid clearly understands their hidden hierarchy, assassinating him would be a total nightmare. She fiercely commanded her subordinate to infiltrate the gnome's workshop and investigate the purchase. The servant hesitated, terrified of breaking their sacred underworld code. But as the supreme rulemaker, she demanded absolute obedience violently, craving to rip that arrogant boy to shreds. Suddenly, the grand doors exploded inward. Striding through the dust, Khalil announced there was no need to hunt him down, and coldly warned her goons to stand down. He preferred not to trigger a massive massacre, yet promised absolute devastation if she lacked basic survival instincts. Her elite guards sensed the boy's overwhelming aura, but Duchala sharply ordered them to stand down. Amused by his fearless solo entrance, she elegantly offered him a chair. Beneath the flickering candlelight, their intense psychological warfare commenced. She subtly probed for his true motive in invading her island, prompting him to instantly drop the useless pleasantries. He confidently pitched a massive alliance, yet she scoffed, labeling the ambitious kid insanely greedy after sparking so much absolute chaos across her peaceful territory. Smirking, he confessed his hunger was far from satisfied. The queen coldly stated that certain earthly realms remain permanently untouchable. Even this lawless paradise respects strict boundaries. Unsheathing his blade with a deadly flash, he challenged her logic, hurling his weapon straight at her face. The supersonic strike left her completely frozen. Miraculously, the blade bypassed her skull entirely, impaling a shadowy presence lurking directly behind the silk drapes. Khalil mockingly applauded the assassin's pathetic stealth mastery, exposing their absolute incompetence. A hidden rogue dropped dead, permanently silenced. Without missing a beat, Khalil called out her lethally spiked tea, mocking her spectacularly outdated assassination strategies. Kieran represented ancient nobility, Kama practically bled barbarian rage, and Suan carried hybrid genetics. This chaotic island fascinated him, especially this mysterious eastern wanderer. A terrified Duchala demanded to know his intel sources. Khalil smirked, perfectly aware of the dark history that forced her exile. In her homeland, citizens endure hellish assassin conditioning, where mere survival means watching half your peers die. She fled to this savage barbarian haven, desperate to cut the strings of her puppet masters. Yet this island's entire foundation crumbles without the dark economy of the black market. Fleeing aristocratic control, Duchala ironically became their puppet once more. She perfectly understood her survival against the Empire, completely relied on the rival bosses. However, this sanctuary was destined to burn, as escaping the nobility's crushing grasp was pure fantasy. Khalil leaned in with a critical question. He challenged Duchala to dream larger, asking if she possessed the fiery ambition to conquer the world. Snapping back, she furiously asked if this arrogant brat thought managing a rogue city surrounded by hostile kingdoms was some easy game. He confidently acknowledged the brutal difficulty, yet his eyes blazed with undeniable conviction, clarifying that his grand vision extended far beyond a single nation. He revealed his ultimate plan, forging an untouchable shadow empire that would completely devour the entire continent. Suan paced nervously outside during this intense negotiation, exhaling a massive sigh of relief when the heavy doors finally swung open, revealing the unscathed boy. Khalil felt mildly amused by Suan's genuine panic over his safety, though the captain's overwhelming anxiety was completely justified. Because stepping into Duchala's lair completely alone was suicidal. Unlike Kama, this queen holds massive aristocratic ties, and they practically just declared war on her. Suan desperately needs to know. How did Khalil predict that woman would actually accept his insane proposal? Khalil honestly had no clue. He just gambled everything, knowing a counterattack was totally off the table. If those stuck-up nobles stick their noses in, this fragile peace shatters completely. But time is absolutely ticking. The brutal hunt for heretics is still raging out there, and innocent lives are on the line. The ultimate challenge, luring all those savage barbarians straight here. Khalil plans to bait them all, using the legendary hype surrounding the infamous Slave King. Only Suan packs enough clout to pull this off. Khalil needs these refugees marching in, willingly reminding the captain about his ironclad vow to hand over that entire island. To pull this off, he questions if slaughtering every local chief is the only way, aggressively grabbing Suan's heavily tattooed wrist. Khalil calls out his massive bluff. The Red Eye tribe never possessed that specific ink. Suan is secretly the fourth chief of Traitor, the reigning champion of the Blood Ring. This explosive truth leaves Suan completely paralyzed. How did this kid uncover his deepest secret? The boy challenges the veteran captain to a dawn showdown in the arena. Back when the Oracle first appeared, the royal palace summoned Khalil. But those elites mocked his barbarian blood and dismissed his warnings. So our hero had to violently prove his worth. That is exactly when Oliver proposed a crazy wager before the entire aristocratic court. If this savage could conquer the Death Ring, they would bow down. Khalil absolutely dominated, becoming the youngest champion in history with 75 flawless victories, earning him the ultimate victor's brand, a permanent wrist tattoo, perfectly mirroring Suan's hidden ink. Now Khalil steps right back into that blood-soaked coliseum once again, eagerly awaiting the legendary captain. Suan arrives, decked out in his intimidating gladiator gear. This marks the absolute first time our boy faces this titan, fully aware of his monstrous combat skills. But Khalil is practically buzzing with adrenaline. He finally discovered a worthy opponent who can survive his maximum unfiltered power. The undisputed king of the arena prepares to brutally defend his crown. Observing his flawless posture, Khalil instantly spots the mythical 8th stance of Valvant. This absolute beast lived and breathed martial arts, dedicating his entire existence to polishing his lethal techniques, climbing to the absolute peak of human combat, unlocking Valvant's 8th form. Suan conquered the bloody arena, relying on just 2 basic stances from his rugged childhood. If he had mastered the complete martial set, he would literally become a walking natural disaster. He lunges violently at our hero. Legends claim that during Valvant's final moments, he deeply regretted never mentoring Suan, despite strictly refusing all apprentices. Our main character knows he must rewrite that tragic history. During this new timeline, boom, the titans violently clash. Suan fights like a true Colosseum beast, wielding massive gauntlets perfectly. But Khalil fiercely counters with a blinding sword slash. Sensing the overwhelming durability, the boy realizes those metal fists are definitely Miyu family masterpieces. Suan smirks and confirms their legendary origin, bragging he claimed them as a grand champion's trophy. He boasts that genuine dwarven artifacts boast the most indestructible steel ever forged. Khalil effortlessly weaves through the deadly hooks, totally agreeing. He never expected the arena's ruler to casually parry his lightning-fast strikes. Meanwhile, panic creeps into Suan as he realizes he vastly underestimated this terrifying kid. How on earth is a teenager this insanely overpowered? The only logical explanation is that this absolute prodigy has been grinding hardcore combat levels. Literally, since he was in the womb, Khalil smirks, finally ready to unleash his broken skills, flooding his cursed blade with violent aura. Suan assumes it is basic mana, but upon closer inspection, that eerie glow is entirely alien. Totally clueless, the veteran recognizes one chilling fact. This energy is lethally dangerous. That fluid stance totally breaks all conventional combat rules. It is a terrifying art that ignores the sword's sharpness. Relying purely on bone-shattering raw kinetic pressure, Khalil's devastating swing instantly pulverizes the champion's indestructible dwarven gauntlets, and the explosive shockwave launches the massive man backward, completely crushing his spine against the unyielding concrete arena wall. Stripped of his shattered armor, Suan desperately tries to comprehend the godlike nature of that attack, realizing it absolutely eclipses standard mana blades. The bloody duel is officially over. Khalil extends a respectful hand toward the fallen gladiator king, calmly asking if this brutal conclusion satisfies him. Suan burned through his entire life's arsenal, yet still tasted absolute crushing defeat. Surprisingly, losing brings him inner peace. He accepts his brutal loss without complaint. Honestly, Khalil realizes how insanely risky that was. If he had miscalculated his explosive output by an inch, he would have totally vaporized a potential ally. He flexed this hard because conquering 2 warlords should finally grant him some desperately needed breathing room using his terrifying new street cred. However, in his calculating eyes, only one absolute boss is qualified to rule this underworld. That man is Suan, a rare hybrid, bridging the savage barbarians and the mighty empire. He is the ultimate candidate for this chaotic throne. Khalil stares him down, declaring the fateful hour has arrived. They are finally going to unearth Traitor's darkest secret. He already pitched this insane alliance to Duchala. Her brilliant criminal mind practically birthed this sanctuary, successfully running both the blood-soaked arena and the underground black market. But even her underworld empire has limits. Promoted as an absolute lawless paradise, they easily lured wandering barbarians, while totally ghosting the empire's radar. This genius trap hooks hardcore fighters, dialing the city's madness to maximum. Yet even with the legendary slave king desperately holding this explosive society together, that political harmony was way too fragile. That is exactly why Khalil threw Duchala a lifeline. Suan demanded answers, and Khalil dropped the ultimate truth. The answer was shockingly simple: weaponized information. This raging river slices the continent in half, with Traitor City sitting dead center. It is absolutely the fastest route across the entire region. But thanks to those violent churning currents, navigating it is pure suicide. Yet Suan can conquer it, making the free city the ultimate hub for nobles across the 3 kingdoms. To buy black market secrets. It is a massive melting pot. Suan suddenly clicked. This kid was aiming for absolute market domination. Trading grants ultimate freedom across the continent, exactly what Khalil craved. And Suan was the sole mastermind capable of pulling this off, alongside the surviving chiefs. The boy was plotting a massive takeover, forging a legendary trade route linking countless cities together. It all starts here. Traitor City would be reborn as the beating heart of the entire empire, birthing a terrifying invisible shadow organization. Duchala respected the sheer audacity, but feared they would be reduced to mere coin chasers. Did this kid even know the bloody fate of information brokers? Suspicion flared that he was an imperial spy, until Khalil casually flashed his father's golden crest. Since these underworld bosses practically lived in the shadows, that legendary emblem sent chills down their spines. Khalil refused to expose his intel sources, but promised that achieving god-tier greatness demands high-stakes gambling. He never originally intended to weaponize his father's medallion, like this. Duchala swallowed hard. That crest was exclusively granted to shadow operatives handling Black Ops missions for the Imperial throne. She knew Khalil was a wild card, but this was a whole different league of crazy. Khalil finally earned her trust, but she dropped a harsh truth. Surviving on black market whispers alone was a guaranteed death sentence. Traitor desperately needed raw resources for defense. Kama backed her up. Real merchants dominate through an insane physical inventory. You cannot hustle with empty pockets. Smiling Khalil dropped a bombshell about the Kanatra mountain range located right between Traitor and the 3 kingdoms of Istria. It was a completely dead wasteland. However, a massive deposit of magic stones was about to be unearthed there. The only legendary spot on the continent, hiding ultra-rare octagonal crystals. The world was entirely clueless, but Imperial dogs were already sniffing around. Khalil smirked. They were going to hijack it first. Duchala knew those crystals meant limitless wealth, but even cursed dirt has an owner. Her logic was rock solid. Khalil replied. That dead zone belonged to a familiar face. Baron Beryl of Istria. Once a respected prodigy, he had entirely rotted away from sickening greed and endless lust. Khalil locked eyes with her, asking if she knew. What truly fuels a man totally stripped of honor? Cold, hard cash. Plus, that filthy old man was a mage, absolutely desperate to hoard those mining rights. Khalil swore on his life that the Empire was clueless about his play. This masterclass intel was entirely his own. Listening to his insane genius, Duchala felt a rushing wave of deep gratitude. Kama scoffed, annoyed by the premature gathering. He rudely demanded they cut the filler and get straight to the blood. Suan instantly flamed the grumpy old man, ordering him to show proper respect to the city's true master. Khalil then prepared to unveil Tator's darkest secret, a truth buried from them all. This place predated the Empire by a staggering 1,000 years, legends claimed. It was a mythic dwarven stronghold hoarding godly resources. Without warning, Khalil jammed his gauntlet blade right into the stone wall, triggering a hidden ancient passageway. Duchala's jaw dropped in absolute shock. Khalil smirked, explaining that magic was totally useless here. It required authentic dwarven or gnomish steel to unlock. He owed this priceless hack to Mog definitely needing to bless him when he awoke. Stepping into the cavernous hall, the underworld bosses stood completely paralyzed. Before them rested the majestic legacy of a forgotten era. The colossal ship blew their minds. Khalil declared human hands never touched it, making it an absolute cheat code in combat. It lacked flight but could effortlessly shred through the deadliest river currents. It was the ultimate masterpiece of a legendary blacksmith, named Perval, the absolute last of his kind. And that towering golem, the glorious crest of the Muir family Duchala, was completely spellbound. This firepower would be game-changing in future wars. But her mind reeled. How did a mere boy possess such ancient forbidden knowledge? Swan, vibrating with pure hype, eagerly asked if the behemoth could actually sail. Smirking confidently, Khalil just told them to watch and learn. With violent flashing sword strikes, he shattered the massive chains. The ancient dreadnought violently rumbled down the tracks. After countless dormant years, its hull finally kissed the raging water. Suan lost his mind in awe. Duchala panicked, thinking Khalil was treating mythic relics like toys. But Khalil coldly declared they were weapons meant for war. The cowardly emperor feared the cataclysmic power of the magic era, burying them in shadows. But Khalil was a different beast entirely. He planned to squeeze every ounce of god-tier power from them. However, the vessel wasn't battle-ready just yet. He needed the black market dwarves to fully awaken its dormant engines. Eyes shining, Suan awkwardly raised his hand with a burning request. Totally fanboying over the tech, he begged for a tour inside the beast. Khalil grinned wildly. He absolutely lived for that infectious hype. Khalil perfectly remembers navigating this exact flying fortress in his previous life. Every legendary detail is burned into his soul. He is absolutely buzzing to witness the continent's jaw-dropping reaction. Seeing this colossal ship will totally shatter their reality. With a smirk, he warns his crew that this spectacle is merely the prologue. He has completely locked in their absolute loyalty. Having planted the seed with Duchala, he prays she understood the assignment. She is his golden ticket to manipulating his true target. We are talking about Baron Beryl, a pathetic, greedy old creep. That is exactly why Khalil ordered Duchala to drop a massive bag for those territories, baiting him with pure mana crystals. They guaranteed a limitless supply of magic stones the second his pen hit the contract. That kind of treasure would make any Imperial mage drool with absolute greed. Once secured, they can fast-track their ultimate underground mining operation. As he maps out their empire, Aiden jogs over beaming with joy. The guy finally tracked down his long-lost little sister. He proudly introduces the woman to his portside savior. But Khalil internally smirks, fully aware of Zuke's terrifying identity and lethal potential. Boasting a bizarre body-morphing technique, she shifts her bones like clay. Honestly, no one has ever laid eyes on her true face. In his previous timeline, this deadly duo carried Oliver ruthlessly assassinating any rebellious aristocrats. Sensing they might ruin his future chess game, Khalil actively contemplates slaughtering them both, right here in the shadows. A sliver of his murderous aura leaks out. For a split second, the siblings literally felt the phantom sensation of decapitation, a pure dominance display. Deciding to sheath his invisible blade, he watches a terrified Aiden completely freeze. Sweating heavily, the boy pretends absolutely nothing just happened. Khalil feigns innocence. Aiden nervously laughs it off, but his racing heart knows he just brushed shoulders with the absolute Grim Reaper. He genuinely believed his timeline was over. Yet recognizing their monstrous talents, Khalil refuses to waste such top-tier pawns. He opts to keep them on a tight leash, confident he can brainwash them. Khalil openly praises Aiden, acknowledging his undeniable combat prowess. Proposing a permanent alliance, our boy drops a massive bombshell. He totally knew Aiden's bleeding arm at the port was just cheap stage makeup. Regardless, Khalil bluntly states he only recruits the elite. He offers them a permanent sanctuary under his growing untouchable shadow. But protection comes with a hefty price tag. He teases a dangerously entertaining field trip targeting a legendary underground mercenary syndicate. The siblings' jaws practically hit the floor. Khalil expects excitement, but a violently shaking Aiden immediately rejects this insane suicide mission. Khalil casually claims he is merely launching a tiny startup, needing some elite bodyguards to watch his back. Swallowing hard, Aiden realizes he is drowning in a terrifying conspiracy. Hiring those bloodthirsty hounds sounds like an absolute fever dream. Using them as personal shields, Aiden's brain is literally short-circuiting. He prays his sister can somehow analyze this chaotic puzzle. But the real nightmare is Khalil's true identity. Tangling with those notorious underground killers guarantees a brutal one-way ticket to the grave. Their boss is literally one of the continent's 5 sword masters, a titan capable of executing Count McGovern. Aiden's mind violently spirals over Khalil's true endgame. Khalil casually notes their massive reputation, yet their base remains a total ghost town, nothing but urban myths and fearful whispers. Time to expose their deepest secrets. Dismounting their steeds, the squad marches straight toward a seemingly ordinary bustling frontier town. He admits finding them is borderline impossible. These phantoms only touch solid ground 14 days annually. Suddenly, a ferocious gale violently whips around them. Nostalgia washes over our regressor. It feels like an eternity, but in this current timeline, it is technically their very first fateful encounter. Piercing the clouds, the gargantuan flying fortress blots out the sun. At last, the stage is perfectly set for this epic confrontation. Blocking their path, elite sentries immediately level their razor-sharp spears at the intruders. One wrong move means instant brutal bloodshed. The guards aggressively demand their identities. Smirking with absolute confidence, Khalil mocks them, suggesting they should be panicking over how he breached their invisible perimeter. He boldly declares he is here to directly buy out Captain Gordon. Suddenly, a chillingly calm, blue-haired warrior steps out from the shadows. He coldly states that any true client knows the strict protocol. Real contracts only flow through their official hidden underground syndicate branches. Khalil instantly recognizes Luke, the two-faced vice captain, the snake who seized control after a mysterious plague ravaged Captain Gordon, turning the proud warriors into mindless imperial lapdogs, proof that this rat was secretly licking the Emperor's boots long before Gordon's final breath. An absolute traitor bleeding the guild dry. Refusing to tolerate this garbage, Khalil stares him down and aggressively demands an immediate audience with the true boss. His business is strictly with the Alpha, not some pathetic lackey. Luke senses the boy's insane death wish and unyielding stubbornness. Meanwhile, a panicking Aiden whispers to Suwon that they are walking straight into a bloody meat grinder, yet Suwon firmly demands absolute faith in Khalil. Intrigued, Luke decides to play along. With a sharp snap, a massive metallic hatch groans open. Revealing the dark belly of the Sky Galleon, Luke agrees to escort them to the throne room, but sadistically promises they will probably leave in body bags. A pathetic attempt to shatter our protagonist's iron will. Meeting face-to-face, Gordon heavily booms that no suicidal fool has directly requested their services in 30 long years. He violently demands to know this arrogant kid's true identity. The legendary mercenary king radiates an absolutely suffocating, monstrous aura. Staring into the abyss, Khalil realizes that up close, this titan looks way more terrifying than his past life memories. He was basically bedridden by a chronic illness, making this their very first face-to-face encounter. The kid suddenly realized a clash against his own dad would be insanely close, leaving him sweating bullets during the meetup. Despite his insane talent, he is trapped in a 12-year-old's body. Just the sheer bass of that warlord's voice left Suwon absolutely terrified, as the guy radiated pure killer intent. But Khalil swallowed his fear and straight up offered to buy out his mercenaries. Gordon smirked, warning the kid that his squad's price tag is astronomical. But our main character didn't flinch, flexing that he would buy the whole crew plus a massive tip. Gordon was genuinely caught off guard. A wild grin crept onto the leader's face at the kid calling his elite squad cheap. The tension in the room skyrocketed. Khalil then dropped a massive bombshell about their flying ship, instantly hooking Gordon's full attention. Pointing dead at the sky, the kid claimed he could keep that airship airborne 24/7. Hearing this wild flex, Gordon leaned in, totally intrigued, asking if he was backed by dwarves or gnomes. Khalil smoothly replied, he is flying solo, prompting the mercenary boss to grill him on how he actually understood the ship's hardcore engineering. The kid confidently revealed the secret lies in the support magic stones, pointing out they currently use 5 just to stay afloat. He admitted their setup wasn't trash, but strictly needed a central core stone to perfectly balance the entire insane energy output. The ultimate fix, fuse them all together. Gordon immediately flared up, calling total nonsense because combining them is basically impossible, since it would trigger a catastrophic explosion. Khalil casually countered that a blast only happens if you use garbage incomplete stones. Flawless stones change the game entirely. He pitched octagonal magic stones which effortlessly synchronize with their own kind for a perfectly stable reaction. Gordon's eyes narrowed, demanding to know if this brat actually possessed those ultra-rare top-tier magic stones. Khalil smirked, saying he wouldn't have crashed a mercenary camp, empty-handed, boldly challenging Gordon to lock in a deal with him. Amused by the sheer audacity, the warlord chuckled, admitting the kid was fascinating. But playtime was officially over. The vibe shifted instantly as Gordon darkly asked what was stopping him from just slaughtering the kid and stealing the loot. Khalil's soul practically left his body, absolutely soiling his pants in pure terror as Gordon blitzed off his throne like lightning. Suwon and Aiden didn't even process the movement. Even our main character was hopelessly blitzed by that godly speed. Gordon sneered, dropping a brutal reality check. Want to negotiate with the boss, you gotta survive his killing strike first. But looking at the kid's stance, he seemed delusionally optimistic about walking out of this room alive. Impressed, he even survived Gordon, casually invited Khalil to join his ruthless crew, straight up offering him the vice captain spot, making Luke foam at the mouth with jealousy, still oozing fake confidence. Khalil flexed, claiming he would only sign up if he got the captain's chair. Internally, though, he knew without his overpowered gauntlet, his arm would literally be a bloody stump right now. A terrifying reminder that absolute monsters walk this world. Flashing his blood-stained blade, Khalil coldly asked if they were underestimating him just because he looked like a middle schooler. The literal warlord finally noticed the gash on his own body, utterly mind-blown that a kid actually managed to draw blood. Our protagonist braced for the fallout of this deadly standoff, betting everything on the fact that landing a clean hit could secure an alliance with the King of Brutality, a massive win that Oliver could never achieve. Gordon stood completely silent, before grinning that it was actually fun. Then flexing some broken, mysterious aura, he instantly healed his own flesh back together. Suan and Aiden watched in absolute horror, sharing the exact same terrifying thought: this monster isn't even remotely human. Even Luke was low-key shook by the kid's insane reflexes, actually blocking a fatal blow and slicing the King of Brutality. A suffocating dead silence choked the entire room. Suddenly, the massive, unhinged meathead of a boss cracked a giant grin, but instantly his aura snapped back to pure, deadly seriousness flat out, declaring that he actually liked the crazy kid. Khalil practically collapsed from internal relief, surviving the encounter with only the tragic loss of his dignity and his underwear. The Lord of Brutality barked for a contract. Channeling a rare shred of actual manners, he slammed himself into a chair to finalize the deal, proving the hulking beast could actually read. The moment he struck the paper with his quill, the magic ink started glowing radiantly. The literal pinnacle of violence glared down, questioning if the brat comprehended the absolute danger of a blank magic contract. Khalil fired back that it guarantees unconditional forced obedience to whatever the holder demands. An insanely high-risk gamble for both sides. But the Herald of Aggression brushed it off, respecting that the kid actually survived his blitz and drew first blood. That alone proved he was worthy of a hardcore alliance. The crew silently agreed, even though it was a monumentally dangerous play. Luke was absolutely losing his mind that a random 12-year-old just locked down a binding magical blood pact with their legendary captain. That attitude just ticked him off more. The battle-scarred veteran finally demanded the kid's name. Stepping up, our main character properly introduced his true self. Luke broke down the mercenary market. Every fighter rocks a specific price tag, matching their rank. Escorting Khalil into a massive hall. Packed with available guns for hire, our boy snatched the roster right out of Luke's hands, completely brushing off the vice captain. Khalil locked in his final draft. He picked Mikhail, Tyrell, and Morris for his squad. If this mission pops off, he might recruit heavy hitters later, routing those requests straight through the guild's official network. Luke was completely thrown seeing Mikhail's name, considering the guy was a total newbie. Watching this play out, Luke scoffed, thinking Khalil was just another clueless kid playing soldier. Flaunting his captain status, he barked orders at the two vets lounging nearby. Before summoning the wild card himself, Mikhail Khalil's heart raced, witnessing this reunion, remembering this exact legend from his previous life. Mikhail snapped to attention with a crisp salute. The vice captain immediately dropped their mission briefing, handing the tactical details over to Morris, their top-ranked fighter. Meanwhile, our main character stepped right up to Mikhail, expressing pure hype to finally cross paths. The hardened mercenary, however, was totally weirded out by this kid radiating serious veteran energy. Gripping his hand, Khalil instantly clocked the deep, brutal calluses, scarring the fighter's palms, questioning his training timeline. The rookie confessed he had been grinding for 5 whole years, secretly dreading the reality that his debut gig was just babysitting some rich brat. Khalil totally validated his hustle, prompting the fighter to admit he felt blessed catching the captain's radar. Intervening, Luke pressured our hero to draft a seasoned pro instead of this greenhorn, claiming his guild ethics demanded pitching only top-tier killers. But Khalil flexed an absolute galaxy brain move, forcing them to include the newbie while only footing the bill for 2 guards. Plus, he dropped one insane catch. Mikhail was absolutely forbidden from wielding a blade. Panic washed over the rookie, realizing he was being stripped of his only weapon. But Khalil vividly recalled the blood-soaked trenches from their very first past life encounter, slumped over a mountain of slaughtered beasts. Khalil had hyped up the carnage, asking if this warrior belonged to the guild. The bleeding man nodded, revealing his identity. Khalil knew cracking that elite squad was practically impossible. Mikhail then confessed how 8 years prior a massive monster wave wiped his hometown. The roaming mercenaries intervened, sparking his fateful run-in with Gordon. Khalil countered that holding a blade doesn't guarantee true mastery, and swordsmanship wasn't what actually shredded those monsters. Hearing this absolute truth bomb, Mikhail's brain short-circuited. That was exactly what the mighty dragon declared. His true dormant power had nothing to do with steel, according to Mog. Khalil stated bluntly that missing Gordon would have completely rewritten his destiny. Yet, this stubborn survivor kept pushing forward. evolving into a fierce brawler by absorbing every single trick his captain taught him. Our lead realized this dude was totally blind to his own godly specs. Catching him pre-awakening meant Khalil could straight up hack his fate. He could forcefully pivot Mikhail's path, knowing he was born to be a legendary mage. Khalil then tossed a scroll to Suan, tasking him with a crucial Duchala drop-off. Someone questioned if the kid would survive. Khalil just smirked with absolute zero doubt, trusting his crew's lethal survival skills, knowing they required the captain's clearance to breach Tatur's heavily guarded gates. Moving the remaining troops to Duchala was non-negotiable, and that parchment held highly classified directives specifically meant for Suan. Khalil banked entirely on their loyalty, betting his squad would over-deliver on this high-stakes mission. Securing that territory and mining those rare minerals would swallow an entire year. Before the apocalyptic Oracle War officially kicks off, Khalil planned to straight-up rewrite the continent's doomed timeline. Pivoting his focus inward, it was finally time to roll out with his hired guns, locking in a highly specific destination for Mikhail's awakening. When the confused rookie asked about their drop zone, our hero casually replied, they were hitting Azor, a flawless, spellbound metropolis, dripping with aesthetic magic. The second they crossed city limits, Mikhail's jaw practically hit the floor. The surreal architecture felt like stepping into an alternate dimension, and Khalil caught him totally geeking out. The rookie shyly admitted he had never set foot in a mega city like this. But Azor wasn't just your average tourist trap. It housed the legendary Ivory Tower and the godlike Council of Immortals, the 7 ancient elders who seeded magic worldwide, literally built this sanctuary. Its most massive spire was forged by Alan Javius, ages before Assier even existed. Mikhail soaked up the epic lore, mind blown by the absolute legends of the past. Honestly, our main character had missed this utopia too, having wasted his previous life trapped in bloody arena death matches. Once inside, the squad immediately scattered. Aiden took point on securing a stealthy base of operations, leaving a clueless Mikhail asking for his own orders. Our hero handed down a brutal quest: enroll in the city's cutthroat magic tournament. Under Khalil's alias, the stunned fighter asked if his boss actually planned on throwing down against elite spellcasters. Smirking, our boy dropped the final twist. Mikhail was jumping into the arena alongside him. This death game was basically Tatur all over again. Mages from across the entire continent flock here to clash and prove their absolute mastery. Flashing a sealed letter, Khalil handed the mercenary his ultimate fake ID. Sensing its insane value, Aiden instantly recognized the legendary crest of Baron Beryl. Blown away by Khalil's crazy preparation, the mercenary started panicking. But our main character just smoothly brushed off his stress, claiming nobody would even look his way since it was just some old wizard's invite. Still, this heavy-duty paper guaranteed some serious VIP perks. Aiden's only job was registering for the massive tournament before they rendezvoused at the plaza in 1 hour. The mercenary locked in and accepted. With that handled, our protagonist zeroed in on his real target. Duchala had tipped him off that the Grand Library held the ultimate answers, bursting with centuries of forbidden knowledge. But since Khalil absolutely refused to chain himself to any magic faction, he had asked her for a loophole. She half-joked that with his insane talent, he could just straight-up overthrow the entire council. A wild move Khalil had actually already been plotting for the near future. Her jaw dropped, completely terrified and unsure if he was kidding or totally dead serious. Plan B for snatching those rare spellbooks meant claiming first place in the magic tournament. A literally impossible feat since the finals were strictly locked between the Dawn Council and the Immortal Council. But there was another way. This city crawled with shadowy underworld figures, including elite phantoms who could effortlessly swipe those exact books without leaving a single trace. With perfect luck, Khalil might just score a Tier 4 grimoire, and Duchala knew exactly who ran those streets. Hooked, Khalil demanded names for his Azor hit list. The top contact was Bargo Sira. The second that name dropped from her lips, our boy completely froze. Duchala instantly noticed his reaction, forcing our protagonist to desperately mask his shock, pushing past the awkwardness. She revealed this guy commanded the notorious Ulka Guild. But what truly sent chills down Khalil's spine was Bargo's secret ties to the Wooden Cloud. He only came hunting for some dusty texts, never expecting to stumble right into that deadly syndicate. It was a terrifyingly lucky break. Khalil had been completely stuck. Ever since the Arden incident, squeezing any intel out of that shadow group had been basically impossible, since that last wizard was practically clueless. But this revelation was an insane stroke of fate. Baker originally rolled with the Ulka Guild, before selling his soul to the Wooden Cloud, meaning double agents definitely lurked within their ranks. It strongly hinted that Ulka acted as a major front for the enemy syndicate. Hungry for answers, Khalil instantly sparked his dangerous new investigation. Azor's glowing magical street lamps gave off a false sense of absolute safety, but beneath that glittering illusion, deep shadows always festered. In the gritty, forgotten slums of the glamorous capital, Khalil coldly ordered the trash laying in the alley to move aside, since they were blocking his target door. But the moment the words left his mouth, a pack of sketchy thugs materialized from the dark. They aggressively boxed the boy in. Khalil mockingly sighed at the delay, right as a grinning goon flashed a deadly weapon. Realizing these were not just everyday street rats, the boy groaned about wasting his precious time. Instantly, a thug lunged forward for the kill, but Khalil mercilessly crushed the attack, shattering the guy's arm beyond any hope of recovery. The shattered attacker, who had acted so tough just seconds ago, shrieked in absolute agony before Khalil ruthlessly pounded him into the dirt. Treating it like a warm-up, Khalil tossed the broken body aside like trash. Glaring at the remaining gang, he dared the next idiot to step up if they wanted to drink meals through a straw forever. Terror paralyzed them completely. Khalil smirked, realizing that in this world, absolute violence was the only language street scum understood. Inside the shady building, a man was scribbling away when the door violently crashed open, revealing our boy. The old man grunted, asking if he was a buyer, but quickly snapped that tournament chaos meant absolutely zero new commissions today. Khalil casually mentioned the heavy muscle outside, finally getting that they were hired bouncers. Dropping Duchala's name like a bomb, he claimed she sent him, strictly to meet Bargo Sira face-to-face. Flashing his heavy-duty recommendation letter, he demanded access to top-tier magical grimoires. Reluctantly giving in, the broker slammed a stack of tomes onto the table. He growled that he would normally kick a kid out, but Duchala's backing earned him a rare VIP pass. Khalil's eyes darted across the pages, instantly scanning the magical inventory, only to realize this garbage was exactly the same basic trash he used to read back in his father's dusty estate. Finding absolutely nothing above Tier 2, his eyes went ice-cold with intense disappointment. The broker defensively shot back. That scoring premium material was virtually impossible unless you rolled with the official council. High-level grimoires occasionally hit the black market, but grabbing them was a total pipe dream. Khalil smirked, declaring that was exactly why he showed up. Duchala had absolutely promised access to Tier 4 tomes, or better, prompting the sweaty old man to suggest he formally join the guild instead. Dialing up the intimidation, Khalil's aura shifted, warning the broker that he really was not in a cooperative mood right now. Slamming the aristocratic seal onto the desk, he made it crystal clear he was done talking. The golden crest left the old man shaking in absolute terror. This was the legendary Baron Barrel's personal seal. Khalil ruthlessly ordered him to drag Bargo Sira out here, demanding a face-to-face meeting immediately, and coldly noted how terribly this place treated its VIP guests. Panicking, the old guy stammered out a massive apology, but because Khalil had violently jammed that recommendation letter straight into the solid wood, the terrified guard couldn't even yank it free, trembling as he begged our main character for help. Escorted deeper into the extravagant facility, our boy was greeted by a host who frantically bowed, desperately apologizing for the previous guard's massive disrespect. A heavily bearded, massively overweight boss stepped up, introducing himself as Bargo Sira. Standing face-to-face with this guy, Khalil actively masked his boiling rage. This greedy merchant already knew about the recommendation, fully aware our protagonist craved rare magical grimoires, way beyond that basic second-tier garbage. Bargo smirked, claiming the Baron who backed him possessed absolute trash-tier standing, but admitted the shiny seal still carried some actual weight here. Cutting the small talk, Khalil demanded to see their absolute best inventory. Bargo fired back with a strict condition: pass our deadly qualification test first, then you unlock the elite stash. Our protagonist totally didn't see this plot twist coming, especially when a glowing crystal orb materialized on the desk. This legendary artifact acts as a strict power scanner. Khalil's eyes instantly lit up, totally hyped that such a high-tier relic existed inside this shady black market. Since lazy wizards toss out recommendation letters like cheap candy, they desperately rely on this hardcore screening phase. It safely calculates a sorcerer's raw mana capacity. All our kid had to do was press his palm and unleash his aura. That final score dictated his ultimate fate. While he had never physically touched this specific artifact before, Khalil recognized its legendary reputation from his previous past life. Knowing it precisely calculates raw magical output, a thrilling smirk crossed his face, totally hyped to witness the insane stats he'd drop. Demanding to know if they stocked 4th-tier tomes or above, Bargo scoffed, assuming this arrogant brat barely scraped the intermediate mage rankings, warning him that 5th-tier spells cost an absolute fortune. Hearing that cold, hard cash could unlock incredibly broken abilities, Khalil's adrenaline seriously spiked, while the boss heavily bragged that his massive underground network could source literally anything. However, Bargo secretly mocked how true geniuses take decades just to hit Tier 5. This kid was clearly just flexing out of sheer delusion. Ignoring the shade, Khalil commanded Bargo to prep the legendary grimoires immediately, casually surging his monstrous mana straight into the glowing sphere. The suffocating pressure instantly crushed the room's atmosphere. Khalil was ruthlessly flexing his genuinely terrifying god-tier potential, overloading the artifact until it violently shattered. The explosive shockwave blasted Bargo's fancy hat straight into orbit, exposing a painfully shiny, perfectly bald head. Khalil awkwardly winced at destroying the priceless scanner, while Bargo froze in absolute terror, realizing this absolute monster had easily shattered the 4th-tier ceiling, utterly breaking the scanner's absolute limit. Without missing a beat, Khalil ordered him to empty the vault's most exclusive stash. Bargo aggressively nodded like an obedient dog, his greedy mind already racing, plotting to secure this walking nuke before rival factions swooped in. This was a literal golden ticket. Sweating bullets, the boss desperately begged Khalil to join his exclusive syndicate, promising an infinite supply of premium crafting materials, swearing on his life that his underground empire absolutely dominated the entire city. Curiously, our protagonist had zero memories of this supposedly legendary faction from his previous timeline. Still, Khalil sensed a massive win, connecting this bald merchant directly to Baker's dark network. Demanding to inspect the magical loot, Bargo's sweat dropped, but desperately wanted to impress the monster, dramatically unlocking a heavily guarded, super-secret vault. He proudly told the boy to pick his poison, but our overpowered protagonist just yawned. This supposedly elite stash was packed with basic 4th-tier garbage. The first grimoire he grabbed contained a 3rd-tier Windblade manual, an absolutely lethal, hyper-destructive technique strictly outlawed by the Magical Council. Spotting insanely rare alchemical ingredients hidden nearby, Khalil smirked, calculating that exploiting this greedy boss's resources might be a genius play. Forming a temporary alliance sounded perfect. Meanwhile, Bargo's eyes practically turned into dollar signs, aggressively hyping up the VIP perks to lock this kid down. Brushing off the sales pitch, Khalil ruthlessly dropped one final demand. Lugging a massive stack of forbidden grimoires, he dumped the entire pile straight onto someone else. Mikhail, his newly recruited mercenary. Khalil already knew the guy wielded a rare wind attribute, even though the edgy fighter kept his powers completely secret. Completely ignoring Mikhail's suspicious glare about his leaked secret, Khalil demanded updates on the upcoming tournament. Mikhail nervously explained, "The legendary Council of Immortals bloodbath kicks off in exactly 1 week." Entering as a complete rookie, Mikhail was painfully stuck in the absolute beginner bracket, where 3rd-tier magic was the bare minimum to survive, mastering forbidden spells in 7 days. For the stressed mercenary, that deadline was completely unhinged. Suicidal madness. He argued average mages grind for literal months grasping basics. Unfazed, Khalil ordered Aiden to step up and intensely tutor the guy. Knowing Aiden wasn't a grandmaster, but his fundamental knowledge was solid. Our calculating protagonist absolutely knew. This shadowy rogue would hit a massive mana wall at tier 3, but his insane swordsmanship could genuinely evolve him into an unstoppable blade master. Khalil commanded Aiden to forcefully drill the magic basics. The rest was pure survival. Mikhail confessed he could easily spam tier 1 strikes, but pushing into tier 2 instantly drained his mana tank to 0 thanks to his cursed triple core mutation. Hearing this fatal flaw, Khalil deduced it was purely a class mastery issue, assuring him that unlocking high-tier spells was absolutely still on the table. He glanced at Aiden for backup. Aiden called that theory completely impossible internally, sweating over how this terrifying kid possessed so much highly classified intel. Khalil even knew Mikhail hailed from the hidden eastern continent, an ancient kingdom where warriors practically breathe raw mana manipulation techniques. Catching on Aiden's eyes widened, admitting that insane cheat code might actually work. Our protagonist locked eyes with Mikhail, challenging his absolute limits. Khalil recalled magical transformation, a totally broken skill, temporarily condensing elemental power to forcefully skip a magic class, an art demanding literal decades of blood and sweat. Aiden immediately recognized this forbidden method, totally doubting the rookie could ever master it. Khalil brushed off the excuses, demanding the lessons start right now. The trio instantly relocated to the deep woods, where the mercenaries' rapid progress left everyone absolutely speechless. Even our main character had to admit the guy was a total prodigy. Professor Aiden practically dropped his jaw, breaking into the 3rd tier in a mere 3 days. Pure madness. Khalil smirked, tossing some heavy praise at the Grand Professor Aiden. Curious about the upcoming tournament, the mercenary figured Khalil was stuck in the rookie brackets too, but our boy casually whipped out his papers, proving he was already an expert. Aiden's blood ran cold, knowing an expert badge required at least 4th tier mastery. A terrifying thought hit him: was this kid actually a legendary swordmaster? The continent's entire history had never birthed a monster quite like this child. Yet Khalil just shrugged off their wide-eyed stares, casually dropping that his mana cores weren't even fully stabilized yet. Turning his back, he left the duo to their brutal grind, claiming he had much bigger fish to fry. Aiden was left drowning in suspicion, totally freaked out by the boy's unnatural aura. Plus, our main character fully intended to milk every drop of hidden potential from that mercenary, trekking deeper into the dense wilderness. He finally hit total isolation. Masking his presence from Bargo using the mythical dragon's heart was easy, despite only having 2 functional cores, and being capped at entry-level spells. But the Masterclass tournament was calling his name, and to even step into that arena, crushing the expert qualifiers was an absolute must. Suddenly, a crucial memory from Mog flashed through his mind. Humanity's very first taste of magic actually came from a dragon, a ridiculously rare flex. Those supreme beings usually ignored mortal drama entirely, treating human sorcery like a complete joke. Yet this exact spot reeked of ancient dragon aura, the forgotten ruins of Azor City. Mog claimed even the scaly legends had abandoned this turf. Khalil had wondered if the fabled 7 elders were secretly dragon disciples, but Mog shut that down instantly, hinting that those elusive 7 elders were probably ancient dragons in disguise. Khalil could spark basic flames now, but old Azir's legendary arts hit totally different. Tier rankings dictated raw destructive output, but injecting 5th tier devastating energy into a rookie spell, that promised absolute chaos. Khalil gritted his teeth, ready to test that insane theory, as blinding agony suddenly ripped through his veins. The familiar flesh-tearing torment flared up while the mysterious bracelet on his wrist pulsed furiously. Khalil fought to suppress the raging backlash. Whenever he channeled raw core energy, that cursed artifact triggered, completely neutralizing his magical flow. That fatal flaw had to be fixed as soon as possible. Refusing to back down, he forcibly clashed 2 heavily opposing elemental attributes together, pushing his mortal limits to the absolute brink. Miraculously, the violent energy stabilized. Nobody else breathing on this entire continent could ever dual-wield clashing elements like this. This insane cheat code was only possible because a literal dragon's heart pumped in his chest, making him the sole heir to the grimoire's draconic secrets. That realization just dumped pure gasoline on his burning ambition, driving him to master those divine arts at all costs. Meanwhile, across the charred forest, an elite mage squad was sprinting toward Ground Zero, tracking the apocalyptic lightning strikes. Tensions instantly flared up as they bickered endlessly over the terrifying tier of that residual magic. A squad leader cut the useless chatter. They had way bigger problems to handle, like reporting this catastrophic anomaly to the higher-ups. Before the city's destruction triggered massive panic, wild whispers were already spreading about an unstoppable inferno devouring the outer woods. Backed by relentless, earth-shattering thunderbolts, the Magic Council officially blamed a freak natural disaster, totally clueless that our overpowered boy caused it all. Typical arrogant mages calling any god-tier phenomenon. They couldn't understand a mere natural disaster. Back in town, Bargo checked the kid's battle readiness, tossing over his guild's official emblem for him to flex in the arena. Amused by the bald man's shameless hustle, Khalil accepted the badge. He then slyly questioned the stakes riding on this bloodbath, demanding absolute transparency between business partners. He wanted the exact gold count riding on his guaranteed flawless victory. A wicked grin spread across Bargo's face, realizing this brat was too sharp to finesse. He confessed to dropping 100 gold coins. Khalil scoffed, calling that pathetic change, which instantly triggered the bald merchant's pride. But our utterly fearless main character casually suggested dumping 500 gold instead. Bargo started sweating bullets, thinking this arrogant kid was biting off way too much, especially with viciously talented killers lurking in the brackets. To him, 100 gold was the safest wager to comfortably throw away. Khalil just sighed, mocking Bargo for dodging the easiest massive payday of his entire life, an absolute rookie mistake. Feeling massively disrespected, Bargo dared the overly confident brat to actually back up those incredibly bold claims in the pit. But our boy had zero plans to rot in this dead-end city. He had legendary ambitions, making this hyped-up tournament a mere stepping stone. A catastrophic war was looming on the horizon, with Oliver gearing up to unite the continent by slaughtering the mage factions. As a rare survivor who clawed back from hell, Khalil viewed 4th-tier mages as total garbage, nothing but pathetic bugs beneath his boots. A sudden roaring cheer from the streets shattered their conversation, pulling them toward the window. The Grand Square was broadcasting a brutal live duel, signaling the savage games had begun. Khalil smirked, feeding the bald guy a guaranteed betting tip. Something seriously epic is about to go down. The legendary mercenary Mikhail has arrived. Our boy didn't waste a single second, dragging them straight toward the arena. Bargo totally hated tossing cash at a nameless rookie, but this kid's insane levels of confidence genuinely hooked his interest. Stepping into the Coliseum, Khalil spotted the mercenary squad chilling way too comfortably. Honestly, local mages were already trashing the tournament's declining quality. The stands crawled with desperate bootlickers. Khalil glared at the arrogant mages, still parading around with their insufferable god complexes. That toxic vibe just fueled his drive to track down his target immediately. The expert-level bracket was finally kicking off. Khalil stepped into the spotlight. Standing across from him, some absolute clown who looked like a rejected Harry Potter background extra. He instantly realized this arena was pathetic, exactly like Tato. Everyone desperately pretended to be elite nobility, but beneath the fancy clothes, they were all trash. To them, these bleeding gladiators were just cheap entertainment and walking bags of cash. Shady VIPs were already pulling strings from the shadows. The champion felt totally rigged, but Khalil stepped up to absolutely shatter their perfect script. The wizard wannabe smirked, convinced he would steamroll this literal child. Honestly, Khalil was actually amazed by his rival's sheer stupidity. The dude stood completely frozen like a statue, mumbling a long spell. Khalil had never witnessed such clown behavior in a real deathmatch. Closing the gap instantly, Khalil blitzed him. The phony mage panicked, screaming in pure terror as a merciless, bone-crushing beatdown began. With his leg completely shattered, the wannabe sobbed for mercy. Khalil raised his hand, charging up a deadly Inferno strike to finish the job. Instead, our main character carved a massive target right into the loser's bald scalp. He coldly warned that real enemies never wait for spell animations. Out on a real battlefield, the elite crowd absolutely hated this savage reality check. They cried about disrespected traditions. But for Khalil, real combat magic demands zero wasted movements and maximum deadly efficiency. He inherited this ruthless logic directly from Sarika Lauren. She always preached that hiding mages in the backline was a completely brain-dead strategy. She literally wanted to rewrite the entire continent's combat meta from scratch. Khalil found her revolutionary mindset absolutely fascinating. She wielded a heavy blade flawlessly while casting god-tier destructive spells. Stunned by her aura, he asked what title she actually went by. Towering over him with an overwhelming presence, this stunning powerhouse declared she was the ultimate supreme. A mythical peak he completely failed to touch in his past life. But now it's his. Meanwhile, the bald boss was losing his mind with hype over the victory. Cheering that the boy delivered a total masterclass, he lunged for a massive hug but totally face-planted right into the dirt. Dusting himself off, he aggressively dragged the kid toward the guild, hyping up some seriously unhinged VIPs he just had to meet. Khalil really needed to debrief his mercenary first. But knowing he was safely chilling with Aiden, he let it slide. The Alka's investigation took priority anyway. The second they kicked the guild doors open, heavy glares locked onto our boy instantly. Bargo immediately barked at the lazy veterans, demanding they stop slacking off and start taking quests. His trash talk just ignited their explosive tempers even further. They were totally seething because Khalil didn't fit their pure-blood mage standards. Some random extra sneered, claiming Bargo was overhyping a total fluke just because the kid clutched one single arena victory. A totally wasted dude slurred a harsh warning, swearing the old snake would milk Khalil's talent and throw him away like garbage. Bargo snapped at Thompson to zip it. He threatened to confiscate his magical staff and permanently banish him if the whining continued. Completely hammered, Thompson kept aggressively lecturing Khalil, screaming that mystical staves weren't baseball bats meant for smashing skulls. But our main character locked onto the dark veins pulsing under the drunk's skin. He instantly diagnosed the lethal problem, purposely shoulder-checking the boy Thompson. Growled that Khalil was an absolute fraud who would never survive as a legitimate spellcaster. Bargo scoffed, calling the drunk a pathetic washout who treated his legendary wand like a literal walking cane. Yet Khalil's eyes gleamed with intense curiosity. Believe it or not, Bargo revealed Thompson was actually level 5, the absolute strongest in the guild. Bargo dumped insane funds into him, but the legend just crumbled into a miserable alcoholic. Waving off the drama, Bargo desperately tried pivoting back to serious business. Khalil coldly shut him down, delaying the chat. Tossing out his hotel location, he casually scheduled a late-night rendezvous instead. Bargo practically exploded over the blatant disrespect. Meanwhile, Thompson stumbled down the dark city alleyways, battling a violently crushing hangover. Khalil silently tracked him down instantly, confirming his dark theory. The veteran was rotting away from lethal mana poisoning. His brain housed terrifying magical potential, but his fragile physical vessel was totally shattering under the crushing weight of his own aura. The raw magic was literally devouring him alive. A past mentor once taught Khalil the only cure aggressively leveling up his physical stats to handle the mana. Thompson barked that this arrogant brat knew absolutely nothing. Unfazed, Khalil stared straight into his soul bluntly, stating he would be a corpse by next week. Surviving this long was a sheer miracle. Smirking, Khalil confidently offered to cure his terminal condition. The cynical drunk laughed off the flex, but our hero instantly sparked his aura. A glowing palm slammed directly into Thompson's failing chest. Pure, intense mana flooded his veins instantly. After seconds of agonizing burning pain, Thompson gasped in shock. The deadly poisoning was completely purged. Khalil checked his condition. Those nasty dark spots instantly vanished from his skin. Though feeling energized, the kid stood totally clueless. Khalil warned this was a temporary patch, promising a permanent healing method soon. Our MC offered a complete cure, demanding one crucial favor first. By nightfall, he swaggered back into the bustling tavern. Spotting his loyal crew, already chilling there, the battle-hardened mercenary completely lost his mind. He honestly never thought he would survive that brutal tournament. After witnessing our boy dominate, he is desperate to reach that god-tier strength. Khalil smirked, teasing an epic showdown in the expert bracket later. But right now, this mercenary desperately needs to crush the total rookies. Unlike those squishy textbook mages, this dude actually possesses raw, blood-soaked battlefield experience. Absolutely buzzing with hype, the mercenary swore loyalty. He vowed to never fold against nerds who just stand around chanting basic spells. Khalil ordered him to seriously polish those raw skills, promising to hook him up with a legendary mentor soon. Our guy secretly plans to raid Mog's notorious dungeon, though rushing in now equals pure suicide. Until that mysterious teacher appears, Mikhail must grind relentlessly. Meanwhile, our protagonist drops a massive covert mission for Aiden. He desperately needs a massive favor. A specific mage will hunt him down there, and Aiden must execute one incredibly simple task perfectly. Just accept the delivery. Aiden realized keeping his true identity masked was becoming a complete nightmare. He even passed down a forbidden martial art to the mercenary. Getting caught meant a brutal public execution right in the Midnight Plaza. Khalil chilled, expecting a guest. But this crummy arrival was totally unscripted. The wrinkly boomer standing there was Tapio from the Elite Council. He dropped a shady ultimatum. He demanded our boy forfeit the entire tournament, simply because his rogue guild completely ignores the official Magic Council. Claiming the kid vastly underestimated this massive event, the elder arrogantly offered a heavily loaded bribe to walk away. Khalil instantly trashed the corrupt council, calling out their rigged tournament. Still, that shiny hush money definitely caught his undivided attention. The geezer guaranteed the grand champion loot, plus a priceless magic grimoire. Khalil silently admitted that this loot drop was insanely generous, but his ego demanded more, flatly rejecting the stunned elder. Come sunrise, the entire arena gasped at the mind-blowing final bracket announcement. Every single rival magically forfeited the entire bloody tournament. One random wizard stood totally baffled by the bizarre dropouts, while our MC quietly swore to never snap that insanely expensive staff. Because last night, he absolutely folded that arrogant elder like cheap laundry. A stunningly beautiful announcer with crazy proportions hyped up the finalists. Stepping into the Coliseum, Khalil mockingly blessed his opponent with good luck. Honestly though, this dude is already dead meat. The grand finale features our overpowered Khalil clashing against Zakin from the Dawn Council. The crowd totally expected the aristocratic mage to crush this arrogant punk. Khalil just smirked. These fans were incredibly lucky his true identity remained buried. If these magic snobs realized a pure brawler dominated them, their fragile egos would permanently shatter. The exact second the bell rang, Zakin unleashed his spells. Seeing that god-tier casting speed, Khalil acknowledged his undeniable talent. Back in the Bloody War, casting that fast was ultra-rare. Without a fully united continent back then, humanity would have been totally erased. Our boy smartly restricted his own broken abilities, knowing basic beginner spells would easily suffice. His sweating opponent was already running on empty. Suddenly, Zakin aggressively chanted a massive level 4 blizzard strike. These boomer-minded mages always assume only giant flashy explosions can win a real deathmatch. Zakin truly believed this frozen nuke meant instant victory. Instead, our cunning MC stealthily spawned a nasty grease puddle right beneath the idiot's boots. Slipping instantly, the elite mage face-planted hard into the dirt. The crowd gasped. You only use that weak trick for sliding heavy furniture. The crowd mocked this absolute joke. Yet during the Oracle War, this exact slippery spell was abused constantly. Real combat is all about insane combo synergy. Khalil instantly launched a blazing spark, violently igniting the entire arena into a roaring inferno. Trapped in the flames, his pathetic rival started screaming for mommy. Khalil brutally mocked his panic, pointing out a simple breeze could deflect this. Any legit level 4 wizard could flex that defense barehanded, but this pampered kid was paralyzed by pure terror. Sighing loudly, Khalil flexed a brilliant mana barrier, flawlessly absorbing all 3 raging fires he just spawned, making the flames vanish completely. The spectating elders were totally shell-shocked by this insanely galaxy-brain combat application. Zakin was utterly humiliated. Unsurprisingly, this brutal beatdown completely shattered his fragile aristocratic pride. Throwing a massive tantrum, he refused to accept defeat, loudly screeching that Khalil's dirty street fighting totally disrespected their sacred magical honor. Scoffing at his ridiculous audacity, Khalil aggressively closed the distance. Suddenly, steel sang. He unsheathed a massive blade, slashing a terrifying millimeter from Zakin's face. Plunging the heavy steel deep into the stone, he glared into the trembling kid's soul, coldly whispering that he was never a wizard. He sadistically demanded an answer what actually holds more value, that imaginary elite honor or keeping his own head attached to his neck. Because all imaginary value disappears upon death. Khalil was declared the ultimate champion, leaving Bargo screaming with pure hype. Scoring that epic tournament victory changed everything. Now our boy knows it is time to strike. They shoved a literal slave pact in his face. Break this cursed agreement, and you bleed out. Even ruthless mercenaries would gag at this twisted cruelty. That bald snake is blinded by pure greed, completely scamming him. Sign your life away for 5 grueling years, the rat purred, and in exchange you get premium, magical loot. Khalil saw straight through that venomous trap. Smirking inwardly, our main character boldly agreed to ink the deal. The bald rat practically drooled, totally convinced he snagged an easy victim. But our boy dropped a spicy counteroffer. Buzzing with toxic greed, Bargo took the bait. Khalil demanded one tiny loophole. This demonic pact only stays active, while the Ulka Guild actually breathes. The greedy fool laughed and slammed his approval down. He honestly believed he just purchased a young prodigy's soul. But that hidden clause is an absolute masterstroke. Once Khalil secures his bag, that entire guild gets erased, since he will rot them from the inside out. Despite the continent's grand merger, that shadowy wooden cloud still lurks. Blitzing McGovern's heirs took mere minutes. Wearing a holy mask, this twisted cult successfully pulled the Empire's darkest puppet strings. Milking the beast outbreaks, they hoarded massive influence. Now Khalil must violently obliterate both feral monsters and these deranged zealots. Countless brainwashed pawns bled for their lies. Suddenly, a blonde VIP crashed our hero's spot hunting for the legendary mage Khalil. The city's top boss demanded an audience, and these elite guards arrived to personally drag him to the manor. Khalil coolly accepted. It seems Fasio is finally making his grand play. That boss practically owns this entire turf. The underworld kingpin finally stood before our tournament champion, flashing a dangerously polite smile at the young prodigy. Khalil matched his icy etiquette. With his mana pathways fully awakened, his sensory radar is absolutely off the charts. Fasio radiates such a monstrous aura, it triggers goosebumps. Even knowing this kingpin faces a super doomed cursed fate. From allying with street trash to butcher civilians, Fasio already sniffed out Khalil's burning ambition for the Master League. Khalil owns it instantly, flexing total zero fear. Despite the ridiculously thin roster, this geezer is playing serious four-dimensional chess. Fasio bets our hero aggressively craves that ultimate championship loot, but he warned Khalil cannot solo this insane raid. To claim the Seven Elders' mythical treasure, he must survive a brutal, worthy trial. Khalil scoffed, asking how to prove it since literally nobody matches his god-tier stats. Catching his vibe, Fasio pitched a high-stakes dungeon quest. Just like the arena, this fortress guards the ancestors' relics. 3 legendary spell tomes were unearthed in the ancient founders' crypts, but intel just dropped about an untouched secret ruin. That bombshell widened Khalil's eyes. Fasio wants him leading the vanguard, offering first dibs on any epic artifact drops. Khalil instantly recognized Grey Dean, the legendary ancient council ground, a zone supposed to be fully looted years ago. They already extracted insane elder relics from there, especially the Frostclaw, an overpowered blade ignoring standard dragon mana rules. The geezer's true sly motive totally clicked. He is using Khalil as a human meat shield to avoid sacrificing his own elite guilders. It is the ultimate ganking spot. Smelling a golden opportunity to level up, Khalil locked in and accepted the deadly raid. Since he possesses the unique specs to absorb the Elder's lost arts, he plans to aggressively sweep the city's entire loot pool. Aiden caught the wild updates while Khalil sharply checked if his shadow operative finished that top-secret side mission. 0 targets have approached their base yet. Aiden practically begged for spoilers, but our boy kept his poker face locked. Clearly Thompson is struggling with his covert quest, digging up enough dirty blackmail to crush Bargo entirely. But that snitch will deliver. His actual survival demands it. Meanwhile, Mikhail must shatter his limits and hit stage 3. Aiden feels that monumental breakthrough fast approaching, but Khalil ruthlessly demands this massive power-up happen within 48 flat hours, leaving Aiden sweating pure bullets at such a suicidal, impossible grind schedule. Our protagonist swore that if they clutch this, Aiden gets his ultimate reward, an encrypted link to Oliver. Khalil knew Azor is shielded by a massive anti-magic dome, totally jamming signals. That is exactly why he dragged Aiden into this dangerous territory. The clock is ticking to leak intel to the royal heir. A catastrophic history-shattering clash is brewing on the bloody horizon. A brutal royal succession war. Right now, Khalil is stealthing through the ruins like a ghost. It has been literal ages since he caught this nostalgic, heavy mana scent. Back then, Mog unearthed the legendary Frostclaw blade, exploring these exact shadows. Suddenly, an eerie chill crawled up Khalil's spine, the exact same apocalyptic dread he felt when the Oracle War Tower spawned. It felt like standing inside that demonic spire again, though this crushing spiritual pressure was just a fraction weaker. Treading super carefully, our boy hit an invisible energy wall, snapping his combat instincts awake. Gripping a hidden mechanism, he desperately forced his racing heart to chill. That phantom strike was a total fake-out. He smashed it into the dungeon stones, a sharp sting confirming he took damage. The ambush caught him completely off guard. Adrenaline pumping, he instantly sealed the gash. This was not just a scratch, it carried lethal venom. He suppressed the deadly toxin just in time. Squinting into the pitch-black abyss, a massive silhouette began taking shape, a nightmare born purely from shadows. An unholy abomination completely abandoned by heaven, Khalil froze. This timeline was messed up. He only fought these horrors long after the Oracle event. This cursed zone was definitely hiding deadly secrets. Strangely, this specific beast was basically a runt compared to the absolute titans he slaughtered before. Those fully grown nightmares easily towered over buildings. Khalil snapped into a battle stance ready for absolute chaos. A blur of motion. Its speed was totally insane. Gritting his teeth, he barely deflected the monster's explosive opening strikes. This beast was a walking death sentence, its razor claws missing his throat by pure inches. Facing this horror with zero prep was literal suicide. Khalil's blade finally drew blood. To survive, he desperately needed demonic arts and a high-tier antidote, 2 massive lifelines he currently completely lacked. One single mistake meant instant death. If his focus slipped for even a millisecond, a suffocating tsunami of venom would completely melt him down. Retreat was simply not an option he had to survive. Bleeding out, the nightmarish freak still radiated pure, suffocating bloodlust. Khalil locked his eyes fiercely, refusing to blink. Despite its terrifying demonic makeup, this abomination still possessed a mortal beating heart. meaning it could be slaughtered, but shattering its energy core too fast would trigger a catastrophic airborne venom explosion. Precision was the absolute key. It was a brutal lesson Khalil paid for with the lives of thousands of fallen comrades. Phase 1. Activate the blood barrier, but his mysterious bracelet intensely suppressed his aura. Khalil cursed, wondering what the heck was glitching out now. Suddenly, the monstrosity launched a berserk assault. Deflecting those bone-crushing shockwaves, the young warrior realized this deathmatch was getting incredibly ugly. The frenzy forced its demonic core to violently throb. Khalil tracked the rhythm perfectly. Upon the third explosive pulse, the core warps, exposing a massive critical weak point, but before he could strike, an unknown radiant energy violently surged through his own veins. A fierce smirk crossed his face. His dormant blood manipulation had finally roared awake. Sensing his split-second distraction, the apex predator violently closed the gap, hungry for blood. Instantly, Khalil spotted its glowing core pulsing for the second time. He must wait for that perfect, fatal, brutal strikes force the beast back. His tactic works perfectly, but the monster retreats deeper than expected. Melting into the shadows, the cunning monster is clearly plotting a deadly trap of its own. Khalil knows this suffocating mist must vanish. He unleashes a devastating blast of pure wind aura. That fierce gale should blast the darkness away. Instead, the crushing pressure directly slams the hidden beast. With its vital core completely exposed, the monster takes massive damage. Khalil smirks at his flawless execution. Obliterating the threat instantly shatters the cursed domain's shadowy grip. But this victory is just the start. Dread creeps in regarding future threats. A mere 2 days feels dangerously short. Suddenly, cryptic ancient runes flare up across his blade's steel. Our hero stares utterly baffled, entirely clueless since he cannot decipher this alien script. Being a precious family heirloom, he guesses it belongs to some forgotten ancient tongue. Meant for his older brother, his past self foolishly squandered this legendary weapon's true terrifying potential. As the glowing runes fade away, the steel suddenly feels impossibly heavy, forcing him to finally acknowledge this family blade hides dark secrets. Hungry for answers, he quickly sheathes the heavy weapon, knowing immediate survival comes first. While scouring the desolate ruins, he uncovers nothing until a translucent phantom suddenly manifests. Claiming this nightmare is reality, the specter demands if the kid hears him. Annoyed, Khalil bluntly tells the noisy spirit to quiet down, finding this creepy tomb already incredibly frustrating. Trapping countless souls makes sense here, the elder's final resting ground. Unfazed, Khalil interrogates the lingering phantom's true identity, adding that seeking vengeance against the ancient elders is utterly pointless now. They are long gone. The phantom scoffs at such supreme teenage disrespect, prompting Khalil's savage reminder that this ghost is literally dead anyway. Baffled, the spirit questions his lack of fear. Khalil just sighs, hinting at a traumatic past too exhausting to explain. Flipping the script, our hero demands the location of the Frostclaw blade, dropping Mog's name as his reliable informant. Hearing that specific name instantly terrifies the apparition. He frantically demands how a mere boy knows the legendary Mog. Sensing the phantom's intense hostility toward his scaled buddy, Khalil calmly clarifies that currently, the Grey Dean remains fast asleep and will only awaken to discover the truth later. This cryptic bombshell fascinates the dead spirit further. Khalil confidently states the dragon race will inevitably uncover everything, though Azor's mages stumbled upon it first. The phantom praises the blade's exceptional might, yet our sharp protagonist realizes an unimaginably greater treasure slumbers nearby. Keeping the conversation flowing, Khalil formally demands the mysterious specter's true name, finding it a completely fair trade. The ghost proudly complies, introducing himself as Alan Javis. Hearing that legendary title, Khalil nearly collapses in pure shock. This is the absolute strongest of the 7 elders, rivaling even Azor's godly fame across the wildest barbarian lands. Our hero hesitates deeply, questioning if this unbelievable claim holds any truth. If true, he is standing before an absolute myth. Mog conveniently skipped over dropping such massive historical lore. Smirking, the spirit mocks the boy's stunned silence, wondering if his majestic aura stole his voice or triggered sheer disbelief. Khalil doubts it is a deception. He only raided this forbidden tomb because the Supreme Elders constructed it, and exercising a pathetic faker feels beneath him, despite not mastering the Elders' legacy magic yet. However, this genuinely confuses the Phantom, having absolutely zero memories of leaving a magical inheritance behind. Perhaps history simply warped the original name. Regardless, mankind currently wields 3 distinct enchantments. The legendary spirit begins intensely analyzing this modern magical evolution, ultimately deducing the Grand Assembly never created these specific spells. This shocking revelation drops, and instantly, our hero tenses up. Amused by the boy's sharp instincts, the ghost offers a tempting devil's bargain, promising to expose the deepest historical truths. For an ancient being who grasped the world's secrets, manipulating a mere child seems effortlessly simple. Glaring back, Khalil icily warns the spirit he has crushed arrogant manipulators before, and every single one died a massive fool. A chill runs down the Phantom's spine beneath the boy's murderous glare. Unfazed, Khalil coldly turns his back, commanding the legendary spirit to vanish. His interest is entirely gone, finding bargains with rotting corpses utterly worthless. Such overflowing, arrogant confidence genuinely impresses the ancient soul. Yet, before completely departing, Khalil drops one final ultimatum: cough up the Frostclaw sword's location or the deal is off. Hearing this ruthless negotiation, the Phantom realizes taming this savage teenager is impossible. Having lost all concept of time in his slumber, learning 10,000 years vanished genuinely shocks him. For a hardened survivor who conquered the Death Tower, the ghost's ancient whining sounds incredibly pathetic. Khalil just wants answers. Why rely on a mere kid? The answer hits him. This ancient spirit is hopelessly chained to this dungeon. Whatever the bloody truth is, a catastrophic rebellion must have shattered the assembly from the inside out, leaving him as the sole survivor. Yet he still rotted in this cage. Or maybe the reality is far darker. What if the so-called hero Gustav actually locked him in this hell? The mere mention of that cursed name makes the Phantom explode with absolute fury. He snaps at the boy, unleashing a suffocating wave of pure bloodlust. To him, Gustav is nothing but a filthy traitor. Calling that backstabber a hero proves history is completely rigged. Khalil coldly reminds him that losers do not write history. In the present era, his own bloodline brands him a traitor. Alan, the betrayer. Plus, if the Han family never conquered Azor, they would only have 6 towers instead of 7. The Phantom demands to know if Celine Han's bloodline survives. The boy smirks, confirming her descendant rules the city right now. This leaves the spirit utterly speechless. Celine was the lone female elder. Khalil senses his spectral companion is deeply moved. Did they share a forbidden romance? The boy honestly does not care. Meanwhile, Alan trembles with unresolved ghostly baggage. Khalil bluntly asks if they were lovers. The Phantom barks back, calling it total garbage. Our guy realizes this ghost is super defensive. Alan furiously denies knowing anything about what Gustav Mogg and Celine plotted behind his back. The kid pieces it together. Celine likely built Alan's tower out of pure guilt. The bitter Phantom mutters that history does not need rushing. But Khalil sees right through him. The ghost is losing his edge. Trapped in this eternal purgatory, Alan finally breaks. He offers to reveal the legendary sword's exact hiding spot. But Khalil is incredibly greedy, sparking absolute outrage from the Phantom. Our main character flips the script, completely changing the deal's terms. He ruthlessly probes for even more hidden loot in this dungeon. He presses for secret stashes. Alan warns the kid to back off, doubting he can even handle Gustav's magic. Khalil just smirks and flares his aura. He flexes his insane power, proving he is built entirely differently. Witnessing that terrifying mana, the spirit physically recoils. It reeks of the devastating energy of a literal dragon hunter. Hook, line, and sinker. Khalil grins as the Phantom realizes the sheer gap in strength. Alan is completely mesmerized by this chaotic energy. Being outplayed by a child, he actually respects it and finally yields. Guiding him toward a massive stone vault, Khalil demands the next step. His ghostly guide instructs him to push the heavy slab. Flexing his strength, the boy forces the ancient door open, stepping into a hidden chamber. His gaze locks onto a breathtaking sight. A blazing mystical blue inferno dances atop a ruined altar. He immediately demands the blade's location. Gesturing toward a glowing marble orb, the Phantom tells him to toss it straight into the roaring brazier. Khalil hesitates his survival instincts, screaming that this might be a trap, but his gamble pays off. He throws the sphere inside. The second that smooth marble kisses the flames, the mystical fire violently erupts. Alan barks out the crucial next phase, commanding him to extract the heat-infused charcoal. It acts exactly like distilled water. Khalil is utterly stunned. Water. The Phantom nods, revealing an ancient alchemy trick that brews god-tier essence infinitely purer than any standard liquid. The essence's flawless purity survived centuries of decay. No wonder the young hunter's jaw completely drops. Khalil knows this legendary tier is impossible to find. His old friend Oliver used to go absolutely crazy, hunting for this exact resource to obliterate the Oracle's monsters, and this marble chunk is massively huge. This stuff hits 10 times harder than standard holy water. Holding this could literally rewrite the entire future. He urgently asks where to harvest more. The ghost tilts his head, thinking the kid is throwing shade. Khalil quickly backtracks, desperately asking for the exact spawn location of this god-tier essence. The Phantom sighs, explaining that this is not some random natural drop. It is far beyond simple magic ore. Confused, Khalil listens as Alan reveals the secret. This essence crystallizes from a highly specific magical moss, cultivated right at a sacred spring he personally protected. Even if the water's completely dried up, the source can always be revived. A massive realization hits Khalil in his previous timeline. Farming this ore was impossible, because Alan's soul was already gone. But right now, they must complete the dungeon's final puzzle. He slides 3 glowing charcoal pieces into a hidden altar slot. Following the ghost's flawless instructions, the flames explode in a blinding flash, finally unveiling the legendary blade. At last, our protagonist claims his ultimate weapon. Khalil connected the dots. If Mog encountered that phantom, it perfectly explained his uncanny tracking of the blade. Yet a glaring mystery lingered. Why keep him entirely in the dark? The missing puzzle pieces screamed betrayal. Mog was definitely hiding something. Meanwhile, Alan guided our hero straight to the coveted artifact. Then the spirit dropped a massive deal. He demanded an escort to the legendary Platinum Dragon, promising absolute loyalty if the boy succeeded. Hearing this ultimate pact, Khalil smirked, claiming, "Those were the absolute best words this phantom ever uttered." Cutting back to the bustling city core, our MC confronted the territory boss. The guy looked completely wrecked. The bald leader muttered about suffering through a sleepless night. Internally, Khalil scoffed, realizing this snake never expected him to survive and return so fast. Brushing it off, our hero casually warned that the city defenses were pathetic. He mentioned ambushing some shady rogues on his journey back. They carried crests bearing a distinct, suspicious pattern. Someone definitely needed to investigate this threat. Playing dumb, the corrupt mayor completely denied everything, swearing he would hunt down the masterminds immediately. Khalil saw right through him. The bald rat was still paralyzed by his miraculous survival. Our hero knew he had to dig deeper alone. Tossing heavy loot onto the table, he claimed it was pure dungeon spoils. Playing innocent, he said it was useless. He offered the entire stash to the mayor, calling it absolute trash. But laying eyes on the glowing treasure, the greedy official lost his mind. He practically begged Khalil to browse the city's secret magical archives. Khalil politely dodged the bait, stating he had zero interest in their dusty spellbooks. In that fleeting second, the cunning mayor realized this monstrous rookie was dangerously naive. Rather than assassinating such an overwhelming talent, reeling him in would be the ultimate power play. He offered an elite mage coat as a bribe. It symbolized absolute backing from Azor, the Supreme Magic Council. Khalil scored an insanely overpowered perk, as that council crest granted him VIP border access across the globe, transcending the empire entirely. He grabbed the staff with calculated gratitude. Mentally, Alan gagged, refusing to believe that Sweaty Pig shared Celine's divine bloodline. She might have been wildly arrogant, but her beauty was unmatched. Clearly, fate absolutely ruined her genetic legacy. Alan mocked the mayor's pathetic mana levels. Suddenly, the Phantom understood exactly why Khalil rejected those worthless spellbooks. Every legendary spell was already etched into his mind. Furthermore, that oblivious fool couldn't even sense a phantom. Modern elite mages were absolute garbage. Annoyed, Khalil told him to drop the ancient history and face reality. Stepping outside, a menacing crowd completely surrounded our hero, glaring at him with pure hostility. Surviving that hellish dungeon evolved his senses. Now hidden stats and aura levels floated visibly above every single thug. Calling the ambushers total trash, Alan smugly asked if his pupil felt thankful for the power-up. Smirking sharply, Khalil nodded in full agreement. Suddenly, serious Alan demanded answers. The spirit needed to know how his mortal vessel mutated. Khalil casually confessed to devouring the blazing dragon's core. The Phantom's jaw completely hit the floor. He questioned if they meant the apocalyptic red dragon Rezaria. Unfazed, our protagonist swore it was the absolute truth. Alan's mind short-circuited. A mere mortal soloing that beast was impossible. Calmly, Khalil explained that centuries after the elders vanished, a supreme sorcerer arose forever, crowned as the ultimate dragon hunter. Hearing this legendary title, Alan's competitive pride flared up. He desperately wanted a power-scaling comparison. Unfortunately, Khalil had zero clue, having only witnessed Alan as a weakened phantom. Catching the slip-up, the spirit realized Khalil spoke as an eyewitness. Despite being born centuries apart, Khalil admitted catching a fleeting glimpse of the mythic warrior clashing with the beast, watching the absolute legend fall. Shocked, Alan asked if he absorbed the beast's leftover core. If true, his luck was godly. Injecting dragon mana into a magicless vessel meant creating an unrivaled monster. Suspicious, Khalil demanded how the Phantom read his hidden stats. Alan smirked, calling it child's play. Without warning, he forcefully channeled ancient memories directly into the protagonist's fragile mind. Khalil's consciousness was violently yanked across space and time. Alan desperately hoped this neural link would prove who was truly stronger. His vision faded to black. When he finally opened his eyes, reality had shattered. He was literally inside the dragon's ancient memories. He instantly recognized the terrifying sensation of soul diving. Wasting no time, he immediately locked onto his surroundings. Multiple figures approached his host. These auras belonged to the legendary assembly, the Seven Elders. They looked incredibly young, barely pushing 20. This flashback was ancient history. He even spotted a youthful, arrogant Alan in the crowd. A long-haired elder issued his final chilling warning. The Supreme Assembly had already cast their ultimate judgment. Defiantly, Alan screamed that they were blind to the catastrophic consequences. But the elder ruthlessly ordered Alan to abandon his obsession with Spring's forbidden vision. It was an impossible dream, vastly eclipsing even their absolute visionary sorcery. Hearing this completely delusional logic, Alan raged over their constant begging for his power. He brutally roasted the elder, claiming dusty library archives had completely rotted his brain. That long-haired antagonist Gustav fully knows humanity originally learned magic through dragons. But handing the legendary Grey Dean over to them? Absolutely no way. Alan fires back. This sacred sanctuary means absolutely everything to humanity. Actually, the dragons merely borrowed it and must return it, but Gustav violently disagrees, claiming humans are responsible for forcing the evolution those scaled beasts could not achieve. Humanity does not crave the territory. They want the ancient entity slumbering inside. That mind-blowing revelation leaves our boy completely paralyzed. Khalil connects the dots. That legendary sword was not the ultimate prize. There is a hidden artifact even dragons desperately covet. Gustav issues a chilling ultimatum. He will only declare his absolute final judgment one last time. His elite squad radiates pure killing intent toward Alan. If he refuses to bow down, they will forcefully make him accept it. But you never corner a dragon. Boiling with apocalyptic rage, Alan instantly prepares to completely obliterate Gustav. Gustav screams for his squad to brace themselves, but Alan's devastating magical barrage is already relentlessly raining down. Knowing those weak targets could never dodge, the bald elder drops down first, taking a catastrophic lightning-fast magical strike straight to the dead center of his totally exposed dome. His lifeless corpse violently paints the floor red. Khalil is mind-blown. That was low-tier magic, but it struck like literal lightning. That casting speed totally breaks reality. Alan is now literally soloing the legendary 7 Great Elders of the Assembly. They cannot even blink in time to react. Even if it resembles Acer, this power scaling operates on an absolutely terrifying, untouchable level. Without breaking a sweat, Alan casually twitches his fingers. Boom, a massive shockwave of fresh lethal attacks erupts, forcing the panicked mages to summon a desperate shield, which the dragon effortlessly shatters like cheap glass. Pure panic grips Gustav as his elite squad gets brutally decimated in seconds. Watching this unfold, Khalil realizes his ghost buddy is insanely overpowered. Who even needs a physical blade? Alan's multi-attribute magic is ridiculously broken and completely off the charts. Trapped inside this shared draconic memory, Khalil can only stand back and witness this breathtaking magical massacre unfold. Khalil finally gets it. This memory is an absolute flex. Alan is injecting god-tier mana into absolute basic low-class spells, and Alan pushes beyond the limit, seamlessly fusing 2 conflicting magical attributes together. That young man is undeniably history's strongest mage, yet he still got locked in the Grey Dean, proving an even scarier monster actually exists out there. Snapping back to reality, Khalil is in pure awe of his spirit companion. But Alan stares back, deeply disturbed by our time-traveling boy. Why? Because Alan peeked. He knows Khalil literally reversed time and somehow pulled off the utterly impossible. Sweating nervously, Khalil demands to know if the dragon secretly speed-read his entire brain. Alan scoffs at that offensive accusation. They merely synced their pasts, so it is completely fair game since he was just in his spiritual form. He did not see the full movie, just intense trailer flashes. But he definitely knows Khalil's ultimate endgame plan right now. Our boy plans to confront the Platinum Dragon, exposing his regression memories to completely prove his timeline jump. But Alan drops a huge reality check. Does Khalil actually trust that dragon blindly, with zero suspicions? Khalil immediately calls Cap, labeling it pure nonsense. But Alan's glowing spectral eyes are dead serious. Is that supreme beast truly your ally? Alan promises that naive loyalty will shatter once Khalil learns exactly why he was locked in that cursed place. Because Khalil just witnessed his god-tier combat, the so-called Assembly of 7 Elders were absolute trash. Most were not even real mages. The remaining 6 were helpless weaklings who could not scratch his scales. Yet they escaped, leaving him completely imprisoned. Why? Because an absolute powerhouse violently crashed the Grey Dean. That intruder was the Platinum Dragon. He forged Alan's chains. MOG is the exact same man our protagonist blindly trusts. Khalil secretly suspected that only a supreme dragon could effectively chain another god-tier dragon. If his closest friend is the real villain, this timeline is incredibly cursed. Heart racing, Khalil forcefully steadies his rapid breathing to calm down. Assuming this is a brutal psychological test, he absolutely refuses to let the ghost see his mind spiraling. Desperately masking his panic, he defends the Platinum Dragon's hidden motives, arguing the corrupt Elders Assembly never actually cared about the continent's true prosperity anyway. True Alan smirks. Human lives were just a fleeting hobby to them. But do not try to dodge the real burning question. Did the boy seriously never doubt that Dragon Khalil fiercely doubles down, swearing he never had a reason to? Alan sees right through the bluff. Khalil begs not to be provoked, but the ghost brutally drops a massive truth bomb. Mog lied. Want absolute proof. MOG heavily swore that the Freezing Claw sword was the solitary ultimate relic hiding inside. Snap reality distorts as Alan reveals more secrets. Inside an ancient chest sits the exact secret artifact MOG stole in the past life. Alan totally guarantees it. Now destiny shifts. Khalil will claim this forbidden object himself, fueling the growing toxic distrust against his former friend. Coping incredibly hard, Khalil suggests a random thief took it. Alan laughs. Impossible. Bypassing these wards requires absolute mastery over legendary dragon magic. The Assembly Elders stole their secrets. Because of that, they unlocked a fraction of true Draconic aura. Every single spell they forged was rooted in dragon energy. Meanwhile, ordinary fighters using basic arts could never comprehend ancient dragon wisdom. Alan aggressively urged our boy to unleash the Earth Splitter to claim an absolutely forbidden prize, the ultimate loot hidden inside. Breaking that ward requires pure Draconic mana. Only a mythical beast could shatter it. Mog, the legendary platinum dragon, locked his most epic artifact right there. Naturally, our main character is dying to see what is inside that vault. Alan smirked, knowing his hype worked, pushing the kid closer to a soul-binding contract. Possessing a mythical dragon heart makes shattering that ancient barrier entirely possible, but he desperately needs the right spell. Khalil scoffed, asking if this is another shady deal. The spirit countered, claiming this was the plan all along. Alan sees his burning desire to rewrite fate, offering a massive power-up to actually turn that impossible dream into reality. Their ultimate goals perfectly align to confront Mog. Alan just desperately wants his freedom from that prison. That guarantees absolutely no backstabbing, tossing the complex unlocking formula straight to him. Khalil never imagined forging a blood pact with an ancient sorcerer from a forgotten timeline. The Phantom smirked, reminding our hero he is risking nothing, swearing his cosmic knowledge transcends supreme human limits, ready to be entirely downloaded into his brain. Khalil suddenly realized this insane gamble could make him a dragon-slaying god, but the danger is real. One single slip-up, and this phantom hijacks his flesh forever. However, digesting a draconic core mutated his entire mortal vessel, meaning Alan would instantly self-destruct if he attempted a hostile takeover. Weighing these deadly odds, Khalil finally understood. This spirit is completely desperate to escape. He openly admitted this is his first shot in 1,000 agonizing years. Despite the massive tension, he kept it real, urging Khalil to exploit this insane cheat code, promising to elevate our main character to absolute continental supremacy. Khalil finally locked in his decision, accepting the proposal. Their hands collided in the dark, sealing their absolute vow. With their souls linked, our hero unlocks god-tier abilities completely beyond human comprehension. Alan dumped centuries of arcane mastery into him, brutally exposing just how pathetic his current mana pool truly is. Khalil demanded a quick fix, but even the ancient wizard was baffled by his heavily mutated anatomy. Possessing a mythical core is unprecedented, risking a catastrophic internal explosion. Khalil knew he absolutely had to hunt down a living dragon in this lifetime. The Platinum boss might hold the key, but tracking him down is pure suicide. Invading a draconic lair is lethal, and he is entirely too weak for that epic raid. Since the Platinum Beast remains dormant, our hero has crucial time to aggressively grind his stats. Alan promised that leveling up the kid will automatically restore his own phantom powers through their spiritual link. He offered to train him in the Frostblade arts, a far deadlier fit for Khalil than basic spellcasting. Our hero realized the phantom was spitting absolute facts, yet he smugly claimed his current swordsmanship was already top tier. Alan scoffed, asking if he learned from that fragile warrior in his memories. If so, he needs to scrap everything, because her pathetic style was just blindly hacking away. Our genius boy immediately caught the heavy disrespect. That knight completely failed to master the ultimate Frostblade. They were mocking Miliana, the legendary Southern Cavalry commander, and the sole mortal wielding draconic energy. Khalil defended her skills, but Alan brutally roasted her. She held an overpowered weapon, yet lost to 0 mana savages. With that godly power, Alan would have forged an unstoppable dragon legion. Khalil strictly argued injecting beast blood is completely outlawed by the vast empire, but his phantom mentor laughed it off. The apocalypse is literally here. Imperial laws are completely irrelevant now. However, our hero firmly refused to turn innocent humans into experimental sacrifices even for ultimate power. Alan respected his fierce morals casually, adding that the dark option remains open whenever he changes his mind. Simply surviving tower battles with a blade does not mean he truly grasps the profound way of the sword. Khalil aggressively asked if his combat forms were trash. The Phantom bluntly noted he fought purely with raw physical force. Channeling true aura is a concept he entirely lacks. Suddenly fired up, Khalil demanded to begin his brutal training immediately. The ancient wizard grinned wickedly. The hellish boot camp had already commenced. Suddenly, the world warped around Khalil. Alan revealed this secret dimensional domain, a mental battleground forged from pure mana. 1 entire month here equals 1 real-world day. Even the Platinum Beast recognized this absolute hyperbolic chamber. Khalil remembered how easily Mog crushed his ghostly companion before. Alan ominously stated our hero must soon clash with that monster himself. The hidden sword arts they must master are insanely complex, because a traditional blade master faces an extremely strict ceiling on aura output, yet surpassing mortal flesh boundaries entirely. True magical limits basically do not exist. Khalil frowned at being called a mere swordsman. Alan shrugged, flexing his supreme sorcerer ego. Mage versus swordsman Khalil couldn't care less about that ancient played-out debate over who packs the ultimate punch. A legendary sage dropped some serious wisdom on him once, and Khalil spotted deep, menacing slash marks completely scarring the area. Alan dropped a harsh truth. A blade wielder's strikes and a spellcaster's magic are two entirely different beasts. Khalil is about to shatter every single limit. He is not just evolving into some basic run-of-the-mill swordmaster. He is the sole warrior wielding both arts. He is stepping into uncharted territory, awakening as the first undisputed Grandmaster. Alan summoned brutal energy phantoms, echoing ancient memories to reveal the dark legacy forged by Kalnir, the absolute god of demonic swordplay. Kalnir also wielded the legendary freezing blade. Khalil locked onto every movement. Chaining spells into combat is an absolute game-changer, but only to shield fatal blind spots. This ancient art completely ignored mana constructs, pouring everything into pure, devastating blade mastery. It was leagues above his current arsenal. With every single strike he witnessed, Khalil's mind was utterly, completely blown away. It took Kalnir 150 brutal years to master this form. There is zero chance our guy absorbs this instantly. Yet, he is dead set on defying logic. Gripping his current blade, he mirrored those godly motions, feeling a massive adrenaline surge. He instantly hit up his Spectral mentor for the ultimate title, already sensing the overwhelming aura of the colorless sword. Khalil demanded to know if this was the absolute peak, leaving the Phantom utterly speechless. Pumped to face the real world, he flexed on the ghost, claiming he'd hunt down stronger rivals. Khalil sensed a massive vibe check was needed to clear the air. Authentic sword mastery requires only 7 supreme stances. Exiting that dark domain, Khalil finally marched back to his base camp, only to be ambushed by the young mercenary. Alan stared the kid down, asking if this was the chosen one. Khalil nodded. The ancient dragon instantly sensed the kid's god-tier potential. Channeling magic through that rare vessel would be an absolute breeze. Alan ordered Khalil to physically grasp the boy's hand. Our main character instantly complied, leaving the rookie mercenary completely stunned. Alan scanned his mana circuits like an absolute hawk, declaring the kid could evolve into a legendary spellcaster under his supreme guidance. Success was practically guaranteed, but the Phantom mentor low-key hated the extra baggage even while deeply acknowledging. Molding a prodigy sounded pretty epic. Khalil insisted this kid was the key to tracking down Mog's hidden lair, hyping up his insane growth. The rookie had already smashed through the third-class barrier. Khalil then relentlessly pressured Alan into accepting the mentor role. They were ditching this dead-end city as soon as possible, meaning there was plenty of time to grind skills. The Phantom caved, but with one massive catch. He demanded a detour straight down the infamous Blue Road, currently dreaded by the modern world as the nightmare-inducing Pebble Abyss. He fully knew Khalil loathed that cursed territory since the towering shadows of Feral Tower loomed there. It had been absolute ages since our hero heard that terrifying name. The traumatic flashback of the day he permanently ended Oliver's existence still burned his soul. Alan sensed the heavy emotional baggage, swearing this wasn't some twisted mind game. Khalil, despite their super brief history together, fully trusted the Phantom's master plan. The real nightmare. That savage domain was locked down by multiple ruthless, bloodthirsty tribes. Their raw power was off the charts. Alan was mind-blown that these fierce warriors still worshipped ancient mythical legends, earning them the title of absolute barbarians. Khalil bluntly stated he was currently hijacking a body, giving zero cares about fake mythology. But the tribes blindly followed one prophecy: only an absolute god could conquer that mountain and rule them all. Alan promised to hard carry him to the top. A game-changing secret was buried deep inside that peak. The ultimate hack to supercharge the kid's mana. Khalil gave his spectral bro a heavy look of disbelief, but Alan swore on his centuries of hardcore obsessive magic research. The Phantom brought up the legendary distilled water. Khalil's heart sank, remembering how they utterly obliterated that priceless top-tier artifact. Alan smirked, claiming his brilliant mind turned that loss into a massive victory. They were charging into the Abyss Boulder to extract an ocean of that divine water. Forging weapons from that core material would absolutely shred any monstrous threat into pieces. Ancient dragons first gifted humanity the cheat code of magic. They deployed terrifying beasts to guard the Spring Vision, and Alan was their original commander. Eons of isolation in that realm unlocked a massive revelation. A hidden, unbreakable link existed between devastating dragon magic and elemental spirit stones. Dragons rule the spiritual plane, and the Spring Vision infinitely multiplies their devastating aura. Khalil's eyes widened. That sacred ground could permanently stabilize his chaotic mana core. This was an absolute once-in-a-lifetime mega buff. Alan promised this raid would completely obliterate both their problems, flexing how incredibly overpowered forming a soul contract with him truly was. Our hero fully vibed with that logic, their teamwork hitting peak synchronization. But the sharp kid demanded to know what massive loot the Phantom mentor was secretly chasing. Alan realized his cover was blown, completely underestimating the kid's terrifyingly sharp instincts. Khalil unleashed a deadly glare, warning any betrayal would end in absolute tragedy. Sweating, the ghost swore his hands were clean, nervously dropping lore about the Shadow Syndicate known as Blade. Those madmen forged 5 world-ending weapons straight from the Spring Vision, the grand prize. That freezing blade. Infusing it with spirit stones there would make its power absolutely skyrocket. Khalil connected the dots. Could the phantom use the blade to physically manifest? Exactly, but pulling that off demanded a massive toll of our boy's pure mana. A wicked smirk crossed Khalil's face. Now, that's a thrilling scheme. Catching that dangerous glint, Alan instantly knew the boy was plotting something completely insane. Marching into that brutal territory meant playing with fire. Extreme caution was completely non-negotiable. They weren't the only ones hunting these ancient relics. Countless greedy scavengers and vengeful spirits were definitely prowling the shadows, desperate to claim those forgotten weapons. The realization hit Alan like a truck. Panic set in. Khalil wasn't just exploring, he was actively hunting down Zarkahochi, an overwhelmingly terrifying Lich Lord. Back in the Golden Era, even the 7 legendary elders failed to scratch that monster inside the nightmare-inducing cursed lands. Khalil quickly brushed off the panic. He wasn't rushing a boss fight today, but the clock was ticking, and his brutal training grind must continue. The ancient dragon was completely mind-blown by this kid's insane drive. His thirst for battle was unquenchable, breathing pure combat like it was oxygen. To fuel that fire, the beast forged a pocket dimension. Khalil's only demand cranked the difficulty to absolute hell mode. Our boy craved overwhelming power immediately. Outside, Aiden paced the hallway, sweating bullets. How long would Khalil meditate? The suffocating monstrous mana leaking from that room literally paralyzed him from even touching the doorknob. His panicked thoughts snapped when a sudden voice made him jump out of his skin. It was Thompson dropping off a mysterious, highly anticipated package. Aiden shuddered at Khalil's monstrous evolution. The kid was transforming into an entirely unrecognizable, terrifying beast. Inside the realm, Alan warned that 24 hours had already vanished. Was Khalil breaking his limits? Maybe. But within this time-bending sanctuary, physical exhaustion simply didn't matter. Still, the Phantom advised patience. Rome wasn't built in a day, and mastering that god-tier sword art was supposed to take agonizingly long. Swinging the blade, Khalil clicked his tongue. This technique was brutally complex. His mortal vessel simply couldn't keep up. Hearing that complaint, Alan's jaw basically dropped. The monster had already flawlessly absorbed 7 entire forms of the colorless sword. Khalil didn't just upgrade the moves, he roasted their creator. Kalnir was clearly a massive show-off with those needlessly flashy strikes. So much wasted movement. Yet the sheer destructive output remained absolutely mind-blowing. Khalil absorbed the knowledge perfectly, but stubbornly stuck to his own brutal combat style. Witnessing this, Alan finally figured the kid out. Our boy had survived endless hellish years wielding nothing but a single blade. Now only one crucial objective remained in this corrupted city. He marched straight into Bargo's shady guild. The bald boss was already drooling for his arrival. Slamming his hands down, Khalil declared he'd secured a very specific mission. Sweating slightly, the bald leader warned him to tread lightly. This particular shady request tangled with some serious top-tier VIPs. Khalil coldly revealed the truth: those stolen grimoires were being hoarded by a highly dangerous cult. The boss played dumb, sweating profusely, but our protagonist's piercing gaze saw right through his pathetic, corrupt underworld lies. Khalil dropped the bombshell, hard evidence linking this rat directly to the Lurian Principality's treason. Panicking, Bargo desperately barked at his guards to execute the brat. Before the nameless grunt could even blink, absolute zero magic froze him solid. Bargo's jaw violently hit the floor. In a flash of brutal motion, Khalil utterly pulverized the frozen statue, leaving his would-be assassin in glittering, icy ruins. Desperate, Bargo shrieked about the magical slavery contract. Unfazed, our protagonist flashed a demonic smirk, calmly citing the contract's actual loophole. He only serves while the Ulka Guild stands clawing for authority. Bargo screamed that he alone controls the official mission board. Khalil shut that down instantly. A certain constantly intoxicated vice leader named Thompson held that exact same executive power. Gripping the boss by the collar, Khalil demanded every single secret regarding the wooden cloud. If this rat valued his heartbeat, he'd better start spilling. Khalil's terrifying aura promised agonizing torture if the boss dared to hide a single detail. 24 hours later, Thompson found himself suddenly crowned Guildmaster. Bargo had conveniently vanished without a single trace. Still dizzy, Thompson suggested Khalil take the throne to permanently shatter that cursed slavery binding once and for all. But our boy coldly rejected the offer. Desk jobs weren't his style. He needed a fiercely loyal pawn running things. Tears streamed down Thompson's face, completely overwhelmed by this life-changing blessing. Meanwhile, Alan chuckled. That flimsy magical contract was already completely neutralized anyway. The ghost teased Khalil for playing the generous savior, but Khalil's eyes remained sharp. Securing unbreakable loyalty was highly strategic. With an apocalyptic war looming, reliable allies were gold. Bowing deeply, the newly minted boss announced their caravan was completely battle-ready. Khalil handed over his final orders: contact the Traitor chiefs. Any resistance, just drop Khalil's terrifying name. Swearing absolute fealty, Thompson paved the way for our hero's grand departure. 6 whole months evaporated like a flash inside that bustling city. The training arc was finally complete. Glancing back, Khalil tested Aiden's loyalty, asking for his raw thoughts. Gulping hard, Aiden admitted his mind was completely blown. Securing backing from the realm's deadliest mercenary squad was insane enough, but completely dominating that elite magic tournament, that was legendary. And solo killing the infamous Grey Dean. Every single milestone screamed pure, unadulterated dominance. Smirking, Khalil asked if Aiden's doubts were finally crushed. Our protagonist needed this guy fully committed. Aiden was a crucial chess piece for his upcoming master plan. Forging an empire demands three things: massive wealth territory and an unstoppable army. Khalil smirked, completely hyped that Aiden caught on. With his flawless map knowledge charting, their next move was a breeze. Suddenly, it hit Aiden like a truck. He was clueless, and this kid's endgame was absolutely terrifying. Tato supplied the endless cash flow, while those hardened mercenaries formed his lethal vanguard. The final puzzle piece was territory, and pointing that way lay a cursed wasteland that literally everyone else avoided like the plague. That dead zone was abandoned for a chilling reason. Marching there was pure suicide. But with this monster kid, Aiden felt a spark of crazy hope. Meanwhile, Duchala received a crucial update from Kadihum. They secured the wasteland's ore samples, proving the boss's insane predictions were dead on. Even the self-loathing rogue was left speechless. The sheer variety of magical minerals was staggering. They were about to outwealth the entire empire. But Duchala quickly killed the vibe, warning them not to pop bottles just yet. Plus, Swan reported in. The harbor reconstruction was officially complete. Every single refugee fleeing the harsh north had successfully found their new sanctuary. Duchala watched the boss's legend catch fire globally, but Kama was seething. Watching Suwan's clout absolutely skyrocket left a bitter taste. As a fellow top-tier executive, Kama felt his own spotlight getting violently snatched. The moment Duchala coldly dropped his name, his fierce aura vanished instantly. She tossed him a high-stakes mission. Pull this off, and he would totally secure the boss's ultimate respect. Hooked, he desperately scanned the briefing. Duchala promised him cold-blooded vengeance, ruthlessly digging up his erased past as a high-born aristocrat. From the fallen Laren Principality, Kama froze aggressively, denying his tragic lore. But this secret intel came straight from Baron Beryl, and more importantly, it perfectly synchronized with their masterclass strategy. That treacherous principality was secretly forging an arsenal, prepping for all-out war against the Empire. His job, verify the threat. Clearly, the boss had completely decoded Kama's dark history. The bald warrior despised playing a disposable pawn in someone else's game. Shifting gears, Duchala bluntly questioned the exact barbarian population down south. Hearing tens of thousands, Kama's jaw dropped when he realized her unhinged ambition. The boss was actually plotting to dominate the unforgiving southern plains. Cut to the tribal warlord lounging on his throne, chain-smoking heavily. But that pipe hit differently. With every toxic exhale, a chaotic grin stretched across his face. Meet the supreme alpha of the flying tribe. Swanmukari. Aiden gulped. The guy radiated an absolutely suffocating bloodlust, the true hallmark of a wasteland king. Scanning their pristine outfits, the chief sneered, assuming they were imperial lapdogs. But our main character coolly shattered that illusion. They hailed strictly from the independent powerhouse Tato. Suwan laughed, admitting imperial spies would already be missing their heads. So why trespass? The young prodigy confidently pitched a massive trade. The warlord's twisted smile widened instantly. After all, violating the ironclad taboo of crossing the northern borders was unheard of. Khalil fired back, claiming the North simply found this dirt utterly worthless. The Empire could launch a raid anytime, and the chief knew the bloody truth, having witnessed the brutal slaughters up north. When Emperor Oliver claimed the crown, he launched a massive crusade to crush these plains, only to fail spectacularly. Against the united fury of the southern savages, Swan spat that Tato was basically imperial garbage, reeking of the same ruthless violence. But the young boss fiercely corrected him. Under his new reign, shattered refugees and broken slaves finally tasted pure liberation. The warlord remained stubbornly hostile. Khalil doubled down, offering the untamed tribes a place in his utopia. A savage bodyguard erupted in rage, but the alpha instantly silenced his outburst. Khalil easily read the room. That hothead was the chief's bloodline, an insanely lethal fighter. Leaning in, Suwan demanded the actual stakes. To buy their loyalty, this arrogant kid needed to drop a god-tier bribe. Since Tatu's economy blocked the Empire's grip, the chief assumed they were begging for a desperate military pact. Instead, the boy casually offered to hand him absolute control over the 5 great clans. His price, unrestricted access to the terrifying Abyss border. Our main character desperately needed that path to awaken his master plan. Hearing this, Suwan barked with laughter, writing him off as delusional. Instantly, a dozen deadly arrows locked onto them. Panic spiked through Aiden. Escape was mathematically impossible. Then horror struck, as his limbs went entirely numb. The hardened mercenary was fully paralyzed too. Suddenly, dropping temperatures frosted the room. A suffocating icy aura exploded from our protagonist. He effortlessly flexed his overwhelming dominance, proving he could slaughter them all instantly. With eyes glowing, he warned the chief. To crown himself king of the plains, he better start showing some warriors respect. Khalil absolutely despised cowardly poison traps. He knew from the jump that the sweet smoke was a nasty nerve agent, but his ridiculous stats made him completely immune. He coldly demanded the antidote for his squad, threatening to slice the chief's head clean off. Stumbling outside, Aiden screamed, asking if his boss had a death wish. These savage clans had been slaughtering each other for generations, and a fragile, blood-soaked balance kept them in check. Khalil smirked. The gridlock was real, stopping anyone from making a fatal gamble. The veteran mercenary knew the dark truth. The territory was absolutely crawling with nightmare-tier monsters, forcing the war to a grinding halt. Yet slaying those beasts yielded premium loot for international black markets. Aiden was utterly blown away by the kid's god-tier geopolitical knowledge. He casually dropped that he had actually explored those unforgiving southern territories before. Khalil believed the timing was absolutely perfect for conquest. However, Aiden pointed out the insane odds facing over 2,000 fierce warriors. Then our boy dropped a massive plot twist. He wasn't planning to slaughter them. Instead, they were diving straight into a deadly dungeon. These beasts crawled out from a totally different dimension, mirroring the brutal tower he already conquered. Plus, the oracle dropping in just cranked the chaos to maximum. Mikhail nervously questioned if that massive boulder had any twisted connection to the legendary two-headed eagle. Our main character smirked and confirmed it. They were entering the second deadliest dungeon alive. Slaying that boss was the ultimate flex needed to instantly win over those stubborn tribes. Aiden realized this insane gamble was sheer genius. Without hesitating, they plunged deeper into the pitch-black abyss. The heavy air crushed their lungs, but these cursed dungeons never played fair anyway. Weirdly, Alan sensed absolutely zero dark energy lurking around the exact polar opposite of holy aura. Still, dropping their guard in this sinister zone was a guaranteed death sentence. The mercenary spotted glowing crystals embedded inside. Khalil instantly recognized them as ultra-rare triple quartz. Only legendary dwarves and gnomes could actually forge them. Back during the devastating Oracle War, these exact crystals were the only weakness for certain nightmare-tier monsters. Suddenly, Khalil's instincts screamed danger instantly, ordering his squad to take cover behind him. A bone-rattling roar suddenly echoed from the deep shadows. An unimaginably massive, bloodthirsty beast was finally waking up. Pure terror gripped Khalil. He had never faced an aura this suffocating, not even scaling the tower. Alan warned them, this demonic monstrosity crawled straight out of the abyss. Its terrifying name was Ogma. That epic cliffhanger ends our video. To catch the insane boss fight next time, smash that notification bell, and I will see you right back here on Tab's channel.